Chapter 334. With the death of the Fish King, the remaining silver fish did not dare to linger around and dispersed. The human cultivators, who had exhausted most of their spiritual chi, let out a long sigh. Their eyes were fixed on the fish, fearing that they would return. After all, there were quite a few among them who had exhausted their spiritual chi like Chen Guanshan. It was only when the fish coon had completely disappeared from sight that the cultivators sat on the ground, gasping for breath. It was as if all their strength had been sucked out of them. Lin Yuan also sat up and swept his gaze across the group of cultivators. The system had scanned the place before, and it did not rule out the possibility that there were some who had unique treasures on them that could shield them from perception. However, there were at least 9 heavenly strength realm cultivators in the group. When the silver fish attacked, most of them chose to only use the power of airborne realm cultivators. It was obvious that they did not want to reveal their true strength. Things had already gotten to this point, so why were these people still hiding their strength? Lin Yuan could not figure it out, but he had to think about it. These heavenly strength realm cultivators who were hiding in the dark might not have known anything about the secret realm. The secret realm had existed for so many years, and it was impossible for it to have been discovered by the embroidered guard. There were always people in the world who had unpredictable opportunities. Even if they were to lie down and take a nap in the wild, there would be treasures of heaven and earth that would fall into their mouths. A secret realm with rich treasures in the northern frontier had existed since ancient times, and no one had opened it before. But if that was the case, Lin Yuan's gaze fell on one of the disciples of the clans standing in the northern frontier. How did this person know that the secret realm would only open at a certain time? Level 4 Heavenly Strength Realm Cultivation. Lin Yuan received feedback from the system, and the uneasiness in his heart grew. The night passed without a word. The next day, early in the morning, the disciple who greeted Lin Yuan before walked to Lin Yuan's side with a look of anxiety in his eyes. He lowered his voice and said, "Lord Dragon King, you should run before they do anything." Lin Yuan was woken up by the other party. He looked at the other party with sleepy eyes. It wasn't that he had fallen into a deep sleep without any vigilance. With his current physique, it wouldn't be a problem even if he didn't rest for a long period of time. Right now, his appearance of having just woken up was just an act. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully among a group of people who had an ambiguous attitude towards them. This secret realm has existed in the northern frontier for a very long time. We have entered this secret realm more than once. Although we have suffered heavy losses each time, we have roughly figured out some of the areas in this secret realm. In the center of this secret realm, there is a group of palace-like buildings. It is suspected to be left behind by an ancient almighty. We can be sure that all the treasures in this secret realm are hidden in that palace. At this point, he paused and pursed his lips before continuing. However, we have tried many methods but were unable to enter the palace. It is as if there is a barrier between the air and the water, blocking our steps. Until one of us fought with the flood dragons and was bathed in the flood dragon's blood. Only then did he enter the palace for a short distance. However, the flood dragon's blood on his body quickly evaporated. After the flood dragon's blood had completely evaporated, he was sent out of the palace by an unknown force. Therefore, we speculate that only those with the blood of the dragon clan can enter that palace. At this point, his gaze fell upon Lin Yuan with a hint of helplessness. Previously, the Fish King said in public that Lin Yuan was only one step away from transforming into a flood dragon. Therefore, as long as they helped Lin Yuan take that final step, then bringing Lin Yuan into the palace would be equivalent to bringing a mobile blood bag. They would be able to freely explore the mysteries of the palace and even bring out all the treasures hidden in the palace. Lin Yuan's pair of different colored eyes flashed with a cold light. However, very quickly, Lin Yuan withdrew this cold light. These Heaven Realm cultivators did not make a move because they were worried that Lin Yuan would discover their cultivation. Now, all they needed to do was to secretly follow Lin Yuan and help Lin Yuan take that step to transform into a flood dragon. Then, when they led Lin Yuan to the palace, they would bare their sharp fangs and devour Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan could only say that the actions and thoughts of these humans were too simple-minded and simple-minded. Once he took the step of transforming into a flood dragon, his cultivation would naturally step into the Mountain Lord realm. After adding all his accumulation during this period of time to the interface, he didn't dare to say that he would have no problem reaching the second or third level of the Mountain Lord realm. Coupled with the blood-boiling technique, Lin Yuan would even dare to say that he would be able to put up a fight against a cultivator at the 5th level of the Heavenly Dipper realm, let alone this group of cultivators whose cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Heavenly Dipper realm. However, Lin Yuan wasn't worried that there would be an existence of that level hidden in the crowd. Otherwise, they could go to the neighboring water flood dragon and flying serpent's territories at any time and capture them alive. There was no need to offend Lin Yuan, a terrifying beast king who had both power and influence in the northern frontier. Lord Dragon King, my Shui clan owes you a debt of gratitude. From a small clan that was about to fall into ruin, we were able to become one of the most powerful clans in the northern frontier. That's why I'm telling you these secrets. The clan disciple cupped his fists towards Lin Yuan and said in a low voice, although I, Shui Yang, am not a person with high morals, I have to repay a debt of gratitude. This is what my late father told me every day. I will help you block the cultivators here. This is the map of the secret realm that we drew up earlier. Please accept it. Lin Yuan hadn't reached the point where he could make a move against the northern frontier clans. Currently, only the embroidered uniform guard and the Qiao clan knew about the government decree. Thus, the northern frontier clans who had followed behind Lin Yuan to monopolize the Fey business had all made a fortune. They were very satisfied with Lin Yuan as the ruler of the northern frontier. If Lin Yuan collapsed, the Shunwu dynasty would send another governor to control the northern frontier to control the northern frontier princes. Then, these clans would have a hard time. Thus, Shui Yang sincerely hoped that Lin Yuan would leave this secret realm as soon as possible. Shui clan, Shui Yang. I got it. Lin Yuan nodded towards Shui Yang and said with a smile, I have to repay a debt of gratitude. This king also understands this principle. Although this king won't leave today, this king will remember this debt of gratitude. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely return it to the Shui clan. Lord Dragon King. Shui Yang's eyes were filled with anxiety. The thing that he was most worried about had happened. This Dragon King still wasn't willing to leave after knowing about the plan of those Heaven Dipper realm experts. Instead, he was planning to stay and wrestle with these fellows with ulterior motives. Chapter 335. This king won't joke around with his own life. Just watch. Lin Yuan smiled at Shui Yang. The coldness in his eyes was completely restrained, and the previous coldness could not be seen at all. In his previous life, Lin Yuan had read some novels. In fantasy novels, a powerful ancestor would protect a family or sect, allowing that power to flourish in the local area. However, in reality, this was obviously illogical. Perhaps the ancestor of a certain power was indeed very strong, but he was definitely not an invincible existence. Not to mention that the cultivators of the same realm wouldn't allow you to do whatever you want, even if they didn't say anything. There was still the existence of the imperial court above. If it was an emperor like Lei Qiusheng, if you dared to commit any acts of banditry, you could only wait for your whole family to be executed. Shui Yang was obviously the same. Although he was a Heaven Star Border Realm Level 4 cultivator, his strength was one of the best in the entire northern frontier. However, a person's strength didn't represent the strength of the Shui family. No matter how strong he was, it was impossible for him to protect the entire Shui family. Whether a family was strong or not, it was ultimately dependent on the performance of the family members. When the northern frontier was completely under his control, Lin Yuan had plenty of ways to make a family stronger within the rules. Of course, Lin Yuan wasn't worried that things like nurturing a tiger would happen to him. He could even let go of a superclass power like the Qiao family, let alone a lowly Shui family. Once the other party violated Lin Yuan's bottom line, what awaited them would be a bloody and brutal blow. Shui Yang, you really dare to betray us. A Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator who didn't make a move yesterday sneered. He opened and closed his hands. The water around him boiled rapidly and actually evaporated into water vapor. At the same time, a huge fire bird phantom condensed behind this Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator. As a fire element cultivator that countered water, This person was able to pass through the undercurrent outside and survive the random teleportation on the first day. Even Lin Yuan had to show a serious expression. When his gaze landed on the other's face, a hint of wariness flashed through Lin Yuan's eyes. But soon, the fear in Lin Yuan's eyes was swept away, and he sneered, "This king is standing right here. Do you have the guts to make a move against this king? No matter what you do to Shui Yang today, this king will take it all." A hint of ridicule flashed in the eyes of the Heavenly Dipper realm expert, and the Firebird phantom behind him slowly faded away. Then, he slowly raised his right hand, pointed at Lin Yuan, and said, "You, the Black Snake, are just a beast. Even if you know our plan, what can you do? Today, I'll say it right here. If you want to transform into a flood dragon, you'll have to do it. If you don't want to, you'll have to transform into a flood dragon for me. Are you going to shed all pretense of cordiality?" After a night of recuperation, Chen Guanshan, who had gradually recovered to his peak state, stepped behind Lin Yuan and looked at the cultivator who summoned the Firebird phantom. A hint of mockery flashed across his face, and he said indifferently, "I heard that dogs that bite don't bark. I'm very curious if you're an exception." Even the Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator who was a distance away could hear the conversation between Shui Yang and Lin Yuan. Chen Guanshan, who was beside Lin Yuan last night, naturally heard it. But to him, Lin Yuan's sincere goodwill was far more important than a bullshit secret realm. Therefore, Chen Guanshan still didn't hesitate and stepped behind Lin Yuan. A cold glint flashed across the Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator's eyes. As one of the few experts in the northern frontier, when had he ever been compared to a dog? It was just that the Heaven Star Border Realm expert who was suspected to be the Shuangjian barbarian had shown his skills yesterday. It was enough to make any of them feel fear. After all, although they were strong, they were still mortals. Not all of them had the level of self-healing ability of the Fish King. If they were to be hit by Chen Guanshan, they would at least be half dead. The Heaven Star Border Realm expert trembled with anger. In the end, he fiercely glared at Chen Guanshan and angrily returned to his resting place and sat down cross-legged. As expected, dogs that bite don't bark. Chen Guanshan seemed to be muttering to himself, but his voice wasn't soft. At least, the Heaven Star Border Realm expert who had just left could hear it. "What are you thinking?" Chen Guanshan walked to Lin Yuan and Shui Yang's side and asked directly without any hesitation. Shui Yang's tip-off to Lin Yuan had undoubtedly violated the bottom line of all Heaven Star Border Realm experts. Therefore, there was no place for Shui Yang. Even if Shui Yang's cultivation wasn't weak, he couldn't withstand the attacks of 8 Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators at the same time, right? Now, Shui Yang had no choice but to follow Lin Yuan and follow Lin Yuan for good or ill. In the Hengduan mountain range, hunting and being hunted are always going on. What's funny is that most of the prey thinks of themselves as the hunter. Lin Yuan's gaze swept across Chen Guanshan's face and replied indifferently. Since they had already shed all pretenses, Lin Yuan didn't mind offending the other party even more. Strange creatures like humans seemed to be like this. If someone bullied you, if you retaliated, the other party might be angrier, or they might leave with their tails between their legs, not daring to provoke you again. But if you endured this, then the next time you met, the other party would bully you again until you couldn't bear it anymore and burst out. Only then would you realize that the other party was nothing more than this. Would Lin Yuan be afraid of a group of Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators? Obviously not. These Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators who had shed all pretenses with him had become moving free attribute points in Lin Yuan's eyes, waiting for him to harvest. As soon as the voice fell, a group of Heaven Star Border Realm experts couldn't wait to tear Lin Yuan apart. However, Lin Yuan's transformation into a dragon could give them unimaginable benefits, so they could only endure and silently remember this account. According to the original plan, where is the first stop? Lin Yuan's gaze fell on Shui Yang's face again. Shui Yang pondered for a moment, frowned and opened the animal skin map that he intended to pass to Lin Yuan, but Lin Yuan didn't take it. He glanced at it and said in a deep voice, "Next to the territory of the silver-scaled fish is the territory of the water dragon. We have seen some young water dragons eating a kind of plant more than once. Although it will be very painful after eating, once they get through it, the baby will become a real water dragon, and those who fail will become another kind of creature. Lin Yuan raised his eyelids. Under the reflection of the aura, he still engraved the entire map in his mind. This map wasn't complete. Many places were marked with unknown question marks, and the area they explored was at most 1/5 of the secret realm. Chapter 336. However, Lin Yuan was very interested in the plant that Shui Yang mentioned. In order to transform into a flood dragon, he had even given himself a divine name. Although he did not know how to cultivate yin god or yang god, in order to transform into a flood dragon, he had no choice but to do his best to accumulate the power of incense. However, he had never thought that there would be such a strange way to transform into a flood dragon. If one could endure the side effects of the plant, they could directly transform into a water flood dragon. On the other hand, those who consumed it would lose their original water flood dragon bloodline and become the flying serpent. That Lin Yuan's evaluation in his previous life was similar to that of a water flood dragon cub. Although he did not know if the flying serpent had the chance to transform into a dragon, in this cruel law of nature, the loser would definitely have to pay a corresponding price. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would not have seen the battle between the water flood dragon and the flying serpent. In other words, they plan to let me consume this plant. Lin Yuan blinked and said doubtfully, did they not consider that there is at least a 50% chance that I will fail after consuming this plant? If I transform into a flying serpent and lose the dragon blood in my body, I will naturally not be able to bring them into the palace. Could it be that they gave me a 100% chance of success? Heh! Shui Yang laughed bitterly and spread out his hands. Of course not. However, every year, they would capture some demonic beasts with dragon blood in their bodies to consume this plant. It's just that the failure rate is always very high, and the few that succeed are also very weak. It is not enough to support them to explore many secret realms. However, there are some gains every year, which is why they come every year. Lin Yuan's eyes quickly revealed a look of realization. No wonder those Heaven Realm experts did not care if he succeeded in transforming into a flood dragon. Clearly, they had expected him to break through to the Mountain Lord realm. However, this plant that could help transform into a flood dragon obviously had a huge side effect. Even if the transformation was successful, the user would fall into a weakened state for a period of time. Unfortunately, you guys know nothing about hacking. A cold light flashed in Lin Yuan's eyes again. Although Lin Yuan didn't know how powerful the system was, it was clear that every time he leveled up, he wouldn't feel bloated or uncomfortable. That was because the system had helped him get rid of these drawbacks. No matter how big the side effects of the plant that can help transform into a flood dragon are, in the end, only able to transform a dragon bloodline demon beast into a flood dragon. However, since the system on Lin Yuan's body is called infinite evolution, then it will not be helpless against this level of side effect. Weak. That was impossible. The cold light in Lin Yuan's eyes quickly turned into a confident glow. He wriggled his snake body and walked towards the water WM's territory. At this moment, Lin Yuan looked even more impatient than those Heaven Realm cultivators. Seeing that Lin Yuan was recklessly taking the initiative to act according to their plan, the 8 Heaven Realm cultivators quickly stepped out from the crowd and followed behind Lin Yuan's group. There was a hint of mockery in their eyes. Ever since the black snake was born, it seemed that it had never lost. Whether its opponent was a small beast in the demonic beast forest or the city lord of Mountain Block City, those enemies seemed to have never been able to stop the black snake's footsteps. That was why the black snake was so confident. It was so confident that it was even a little conceited. However, Lin Yuan's willingness to cooperate with their plan was a good thing for them. Therefore, they were waiting to see the despair in Lin Yuan's eyes. With that thought in mind, their footsteps seemed to be even more impatient than Lin Yuan. Those airborne realm cultivators who were watching from the sidelines looked like they wanted to say something but stopped themselves. Although they wanted to follow and see who won in the end, being able to cultivate to such a level meant that not many people were fools. However, they soon realized that this was not something they could get involved in. Therefore, they all sat down in silence and waited for the final winner to return. Soon, the group arrived at the Water Jiao's territory. At this time, there were not many demonic beasts in the water Jiao's territory, only one water Jiao and 3 flying serpents. At least, that was what Lin Yuan saw in the system's feedback and the image in the olfactory imaging. Lin Yuan stopped the snake and looked at the 8 Heaven Realm cultivators behind him. He said indifferently, "It's time for you to work." The 8 Heaven Realm cultivators did not hesitate. Their figures flashed and quickly disappeared into the water Jiao's territory in front of them. About 4 hours later, only 6 of the 8 Heaven Realm cultivators returned. One of them was obviously injured, but the leader was holding a green plant that looked like a tree root in his hand and handed it over. They were just a group of low-level Heaven Realm cultivators, after all. Dealing with demonic beasts at the level of the water Jiao and the flying serpents was obviously beyond their ability. Fortunately, there was almost no defense in the water Jiao's territory at the moment. Otherwise, they would not have just paid the price of 2 lives. Lin Yuan looked at Shui Yang with a puzzled look. Shui Yang quickly nodded. As someone who had participated in exploring the palace many times, he naturally recognized what that thing was. Therefore, Shui Yang quickly nodded and confirmed that the other party did not do anything to it. Lin Yuan quickly swallowed that root-like thing under the watchful eyes of the group. Ding! The host has consumed a spiritual item. The purity of the water Jiao's bloodline has begun to increase. Ding! The host's body is being eroded by an unknown force. The water Jiao's bloodline is mutating, neutralizing the foreign force. Correcting the direction of bloodline evolution, a series of notifications rang in Lin Yuan's mind. However, Lin Yuan did not have the energy to pay attention to the system at the moment. After consuming the root-like plant, Lin Yuan felt his stomach churning as if he had swallowed a barrel of gunpowder that was about to explode. At first, Lin Yuan only had a stomachache, but following that, he felt his organs trembling violently. All the muscles in his body were being torn apart by a strange force. Even though the scales on the surface did not change, large amounts of blood continued to seep out from the gaps between the scales. The water around Lin Yuan also quickly turned turbid. This guy, did he fail? A Heaven Dipper realm expert frowned and asked worriedly. Due to Lin Yuan's existence, they could not catch the dragon bloodline demonic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range at all. Moreover, the dragon bloodline demonic beasts that they used to sell from the south were also put on hold because of the war in the south. Other than Lin Yuan, who had the dragon bloodline, they did not have any other backup plan. Therefore, once Lin Yuan failed, it meant that their trip to the secret realm was equivalent to a wasted trip. Let's wait a little longer. There's no hurry. This guy doesn't seem to have started to mutate yet. Although the cultivator who had summoned the fire bird earlier was also frowning, his voice was still somewhat calm. Chapter 337. Lin Yuan found it hard to describe the pain he was enduring. If there really was a hell in this world, then Lin Yuan felt as if he was locked in the deepest part of hell, enduring the longest and most painful torture. Every part of his body was constantly being torn apart and then healed by an inexplicable force. Even though Lin Yuan could feel that his physical body was constantly strengthening under the pain of constant destruction and rebirth, he still hoped that the pain would end quickly. He was even worried that if he continued like this, he would not be able to help but go crazy. There were no shortcuts in this world. Even though the spiritual item Lin Yuan had consumed could allow his bloodline to evolve into a water WM, the side effects were absolutely terrifying. From the system's notification, Lin Yuan knew very well that if the system had not intervened, his evolution would have failed and he would have turned into a flying serpent or some other monster. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Bloodline evolution complete. As the host's bloodline has evolved into a water WM, the bottleneck of the realm has disappeared. Congratulations to the host for advancing to the Mountain Lord realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for advancing to the Mountain Lord realm. You have received a Mountain Lord realm gift pack. Warning: the unknown force in the host's body has not been completely expelled. The effects are currently unknown. There may be unknown changes in the future. Ding! Congratulations to the host. As the bloodline has evolved, you have received the innate ability Water Affinity. A series of notifications exploded in Lin Yuan's mind, But Lin Yuan did not care at all. The terrifying pain caused Lin Yuan to wrap his serpent body tightly together. There was no sign of life in his heterochromatic eyes, and the whites of his eyes were bloodshot. His mind was on the verge of collapse. Dead. This guy, it can't be, right? The cultivator who had summoned the firebird's shadow earlier frowned and muttered doubtfully. In the past few years, they had tied up dragon bloodline demonic beasts and fed them with this plant that could help them transform into a flood dragon. Although the failure rate was much higher than the success rate, they had never seen a dragon bloodline demonic beast die because of an unsuccessful transformation. Lin Yuan's gaze fell on the cultivators who were constantly sizing him up. He was sorting out his mind bit by bit, pulling himself back from the brink of a mental breakdown. Other than the mental problem, Lin Yuan felt that all the muscles in his body were extremely sore. This was the after-effect of countless tearing and healing, so he was really too lazy to move now. It's not dead yet. It's still breathing. A Heaven's Strength Realm cultivator crossed his arms in front of his chest and said expressionlessly, "But, what's the situation with this black serpent? Did it succeed or fail?" In the past, when a dragon bloodline monster ate this plant, regardless of whether it succeeded or failed, there would be a significant change in their appearance. However, at this moment, other than the weak aura of the black serpent, there were no visible changes. The only abnormality was that the blood that had seeped out of its scales had dried up and stuck to the gaps between the scales, forming a layer of blood shell. In fact, Lin Yuan was not unchanged. It was just that his physical body had just finished evolving, and his scales were already that of a water WM's. In addition, Lin Yuan was now in the pseudo-lawful embodiment of heaven and earth stage, so the increase in his body length after advancing to the Mountain Lord stage did not appear. Therefore, from the outside, Lin Yuan did not seem to have changed at all. After all, having scales but not horns was still a horn. If Lin Yuan could improve his bloodline and grow a dragon horn, then he would truly step into the ranks of the dragon clan. Although he would be a dragon of the lowest level, his power was far beyond the imagination of mortals. Is the dosage not enough? Another Heaven's Strength Realm cultivator asked. Everyone was silent for a moment, and no one dared to speak. Previously, when they went to steal the spiritual item that they named Dragon Transformation Root, they were chased down by the Water WM and the Flying Serpent. Even though they had the advantage in numbers, they still paid the price of 2 deaths and 1 injury. Now, if they went back to look for trouble with those enraged monsters, none of them would be able to escape alive. What's the meaning of this? Don't tell me we've come here for nothing. The Heaven's Strength Realm cultivator who summoned the firebird narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "This secret realm only opens once every 5 years. I can't compare to you guys with big families. If I return empty-handed this time, I might not be able to eat next year." At this point, his gaze fell on Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang. He sneered, "What's the matter? The two of you have been watching from the side for so long. Aren't you going to do something and help our Dragon King as well?" After he finished speaking, the remaining 5 Heaven's Strength Realm cultivators all gathered around in tacit understanding. Their eyes flashed with a cold glint, as if they would immediately attack if the two of them didn't agree. They didn't know if Lin Yuan had succeeded in transforming into a dragon. They suspected that the dosage of the dragon transformation route was not enough. If they had to go back and face the Water WM and the Flying Serpent again, they naturally wouldn't have the guts to do so. In comparison, to deal with Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang who were of the same kind, they obviously didn't have so many scruples. TSK Chen Guanshan sneered, and his right hand slowly reached for his waist. He didn't seem to have any intention of hiding it, so his actions were completely seen by everyone. In that instant, everyone thought of the Fish King that Chen Guanshan had heavily injured yesterday, and a hint of fear appeared in their eyes. Although they didn't retract their serious coldness, their bodies honestly took half a step back. To be honest, what I hate the most is people threatening me. If you have the ability, come up and fight with real swords and spears. I, Chen Guanshan, don't dare to say anything else, but my skills are passable. Before I die, I will definitely be able to take away 2 of the 5 of you trash. Do you believe me? Although Chen Guanshan was at a disadvantage, His aura wasn't weak at all. His eyes flashed with a cold glint, as if his killing intent was more than the 5 heavens strength realm cultivators. Lin Yuan, who was lying on the ground slowly recovering his mind, rolled his eyes. With Chen Guanshan's external appearance, coupled with that strangely shaped curved blade, if one didn't know him, they would really think that he was a barbarian from the Shuangjian dynasty. Although Shui Yang didn't say anything, he silently took off his shirt, revealing the iron rings hidden under his sleeves that almost covered his entire arm. The battle intent in his eyes was also very strong. Iron Thread Fist, you are. One of the Heaven's Strength Realm cultivators looked at the iron rings on Shui Yang's arms and immediately exclaimed, as if he had discovered an incredible secret. Chapter 338. 25 years ago, an incredible figure had appeared on the northern frontier. At that time, the northern frontier had just been brought under Lei Qiusheng's rule. Various families and sects had been eyeing it covetously. As the most remote northern frontier, there were many warlords, and a new northern frontier governor would take over every 2 to 3 days. Lei Qiusheng couldn't do anything about the northern frontier at that time. After all, the demon-subduing Master Guild, various large merchant associations, the remnants of the Jiao clan, monsters, and spies from other dynasties were all gathered here. Lei Qiusheng didn't care about those small warlords, but there were many hidden big hands in the northern frontier that suppressed Lei Qiusheng to the point that he couldn't breathe. Therefore, Lei Qiusheng made the same choice back then as he did now, temporarily give up on the northern frontier. Without the threat of Lei Qiusheng, the northern frontier warlords could do whatever they wanted. All of them were tyrannical, causing the entire northern frontier to be in dire straits. At that time, the northern frontier could be said to be littered with corpses. That was until that incredible existence was born. A pair of iron fists fought from one end of the northern frontier to the other end of the northern frontier. Looking at the entire Tianwu continent, the northern frontier was just a small corner. However, to ordinary people and even mortal evolution state cultivators, the northern frontier was a vast territory that they wouldn't be able to cover even if they spent their entire lives walking. That man, on the other hand, had only spent 2 months walking and fighting to wipe out the entire northern frontier's warlords. The strange thing was that all the forces kept silent about this man who had pacified the chaos in the northern frontier. No one interfered with his affairs, even the remnants of the Jiao clan who couldn't bear to see the Shunwu dynasty prosper. Of course, such a person definitely didn't have a good ending. Even though he was alone, he was still labeled as a warlord by Lei Qiusheng. He was forced to destroy his own cultivation in the east of Shunning City and then executed. After that, there were no more legends about this person in the northern frontier as if someone was deliberately covering it up. However, the previous generation of cultivators in the northern frontier all knew that such an incredible person had once appeared in the northern frontier. At this moment, the iron ring on Shui Yang's arm was exactly the same as the man who had swept across the northern frontier. Shui Yang cupped his fists and bowed to the upper left. He said in a deep voice, "Your master Ma Jun." Indeed. Hearing this familiar name, the 5 Heaven Dipper realm cultivators all raised their eyebrows. Shui Yang's cultivation was not low. Even among this group of people, Shui Yang's combat strength was top-notch. However, the trump card that Shui Yang had exposed at this moment was something that they had never thought of. A man who could sweep across the entire northern frontier with a pair of iron fists. How terrifying would his disciple be? In fact, the frequency of low-level cultivators killing high-level cultivators in the Tianwu continent was not low. This was related to the foundation of the cultivator. For example, if a cultivator in the airborne realm from a first-class sect fought with a Heaven Dipper realm cultivator who was groping on the road of cultivation, even if he couldn't win, he wouldn't fall behind for 300 or 400 rounds. It was needless to say how terrifying Ma Jun's inheritance was. After 25 years, the fact that this name could still make these Heaven Dipper realm cultivators fearful was the best proof. The cultivator who summoned the fire bird pondered for a moment and said loudly, "Don't pretend to be noble. Those who don't know will really think that the two of you have a good relationship with this black snake. At the end of the day, the two of you just don't care about the things in the palace. However, you have other demands for the black snake." Hearing this, Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang raised their eyebrows without saying anything. After all, the other party's words really hit the nail on the head. To them, no secret realm or spiritual item was more helpful than Lin Yuan's kindness. That was why they stood on Lin Yuan's side instead of following the crowd and scheming against Lin Yuan. That's right. Another Heaven Dipper realm cultivator spoke and said in a low muffled voice, everyone just has different demands for benefits. Don't make the two of you sound so noble. Look at this black snake. It's about to die. Who can be blamed for this? It's just that it's too confident and thinks that we can't scheme against it. Otherwise, how could it be reduced to such a state? At this point, he looked around and continued, why don't we join forces? The 7 of us will go to the water serpent's territory again and steal a dragon transformation root for this black snake to consume. If it successfully transforms into a serpent, then we'll be rich. At worst, we'll agree to spare this black snake's life. What if we fail? All of a sudden, a somewhat unfamiliar voice sounded. The Heaven Dipper realm cultivator laughed and said matter-of-factly, what if we fail? If we fail, then we'll be unlucky this year. This trip to the secret realm will be a wasted trip. Next year. At this point, the Heaven Dipper realm cultivator's voice stopped abruptly. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Lin Yuan, who was motionless as if he was dead, had now coiled up his snake body behind Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang. His cold gaze fell on the Heaven Dipper realm cultivator, and his heterochromatic eyes were filled with ridicule. Did we succeed? The Heaven Dipper realm cultivator swallowed his saliva and asked with uncertainty. He even thought that he was in a dream. After all, the black snake, which had closed its eyes and waited for death, was now standing up vigorously. The contrast was enough to make people with weak minds panic. Especially at this moment, when he met Lin Yuan's gaze, he actually felt an inexplicable sense of fear. Of course, this wasn't a psychological effect. It was because after his bloodline had successfully evolved, Lin Yuan's dragons might had changed from an active skill to a passive skill. It was as if this was an innate ability of his. With the cultivation of a first-level mountain lord, Lin Yuan could directly suppress this Heaven Dipper realm cultivator with his aura by borrowing the dragon's might. This made Lin Yuan even more interested in the new abilities and skills that could be unlocked by the Mountain Lord realm. The martial arts and other items stored in the Mountain Lord realm gift bag had yet to be opened. However, Lin Yuan was certain that after being stuck in this realm for so long, he would definitely welcome a qualitative leap after breaking through. Just now, you said that if this trip is a waste, you won't be able to eat next year, right? The corner of Lin Yuan's mouth cracked open, revealing an incomparably evil smile at the Heaven Dipper realm cultivator who had summoned the firebird. A hint of panic flashed across the Heaven Dipper realm cultivator's eyes, but he still angrily rebuked, you just happened to break through. I want to see how much combat strength you have left after eating the dragonification root. Is it enough for me to warm up? Chapter 339. These words were like a shot of adrenaline, injected into everyone's hearts. Although there were no changes to Lin Yuan's body, from its aura, it was obvious that it had succeeded in transforming into a flood dragon. According to the characteristics of the dragonization root, even if Lin Yuan had broken through to the Mountain Lord realm, he should still be extremely weak and unable to pose any threat to them. Come to think of it, according to the character of this black snake, how could it waste its breath here with them? If it really had the strength to crush them, it would have already pounced on them and launched an attack. The shadow of the firebird appeared out of thin air once again. The cultivator, who was scolded by Chen Guanzhan as a dog that did not bite, was the first to bare his fangs at Lin Yuan at this moment. Countless streams of water rushed past him and were quickly evaporated by the firebird. This was the experience he had accumulated over many years of fighting with people. Do not give the enemy any chance. Lin Yuan's method of controlling the water was too strange. Even the Fish King, whose speed was said to be strange, fell for it. He didn't think that he would be lucky enough to escape, so before Lin Yuan attacked, he directly used a spell to evaporate the water around him, minimizing the threat to him. A futile struggle. Lin Yuan sneered. In the next moment, the water around him condensed into the image of a ferocious dragon, roaring fiercely, and crashed into the area where the firebird was. Wherever it went, it was like a king patrolling his territory. Most of the water along the way merged into the water dragon, making the water dragon even stronger and more ferocious. Go! The Heaven Dipper realm expert who summoned the Firebird naturally didn't want to show weakness. After a series of chants, flames wrapped around his body like a coat, still evaporating the water around him. The Firebird that condensed behind him whistled and flew directly towards the water dragon that Lin Yuan waved. The Firebird, which could condense underwater and evaporate a waterless area, was naturally incomparably powerful. Therefore, in terms of momentum alone, the Raging Dragon, which had the geographical advantage, was actually unable to compete with the Firebird. It was clearly the first to attack, but the Firebird fiercely suppressed it. A cold azure light flashed in Lin Yuan's eyes. In the next moment, the enraged dragon's body twisted and directly entangled the Firebird that was flying over. The two monsters that were condensed from elements were entangled together, and similarly, water and fire were entangled together. The Raging Dragon continued to evaporate, but in the blink of an eye, it would condense again. From time to time, the Firebird would be twisted into strange angles by the dragon, but it would soon let out a shrill cry again. This was a showdown between life and death. Regardless of whether it was the Heavenly Dipper realm expert who summoned the Firebird or Lin Yuan, both of them were staking everything they had in this game. The Heavenly Dipper realm expert's body was gradually covered with a layer of white frost, but his eyes still flickered with a cold light, as if he was completely aware of his own abnormality. He used all his strength to control the Firebird and the Raging Dragon to kill each other. It was the same for Lin Yuan. The blood shell and scales on his body were scorched by the high temperature, and the smell of roasted meat could even be smelled from Lin Yuan's body from afar. The remaining 6 people who had yet to participate in the battle looked at each other. None of them were newbies who had just entered the pugilistic world. At this time, if they were to talk about the pugilistic world's morality and such, they would only be defeated one by one. Therefore, the 4 Heavenly Dipper realm experts didn't have any communication, but they took out their respective weapons at the same time. Naturally, Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang wouldn't just stand by and watch. One on the left and one on the right, they protected Lin Yuan. Their gazes landed on the 4 Heavenly Dipper realm experts, and their eyes revealed a hint of disdain. Everyone was very clear that this was undoubtedly a game of life and death between the two sides. If Lin Yuan could kill the other side, then in the following 3 against 4 battle, they could almost take down these guys without any suspense. But if Lin Yuan was interrupted halfway, he would inevitably be counterattacked by the spell. At that time, it would be 2 against 5, and they would have to bring along the burden of Lin Yuan who had lost his combat power. Both sides were red-eyed, staring fiercely at their opponents. Boom! A loud noise suddenly rang out. Before everyone could fight, Lin Yuan and the Heavenly Dipper realm expert who summoned the Firebird changed again. The boiling water splashed everywhere, and countless steam began to rise. The Raging Dragon and the Firebird disappeared almost at the same time. The Heavenly Dipper realm expert who summoned the Firebird took a few steps back and spat out a big mouthful of dirty blood. His whole body was trembling slightly. Lin Yuan was calm and unruffled in the midst of chaos. His heterochromatic eyes revealed a touch of ridicule. Immediately, Lin Yuan's eyes widened. An even more ferocious and terrifying Raging Dragon suddenly condensed beside Lin Yuan. Puff! The Heavenly Dipper realm expert who summoned the Firebird spat out another mouthful of blood. But this time, it was not because of the internal injuries, but purely because of Lin Yuan's anger. This monster had the power to crush him from the beginning, but he just had to release a water dragon that was about as strong as his Firebird to fight. Both sides suffered a certain degree of injury, but the same degree of injury might be fatal on a human, but on a monster, it might be called scraping. In other words, in the confrontation just now, his whole person was almost frozen into a popsicle. And Lin Yuan's body temperature at most rose a little. However, snakes were cold-blooded animals. If they did not get sunlight to adjust their body temperature for a long time, they might even freeze themselves to death. So, not only did his method not cause any harm to Lin Yuan, but it was more like giving Lin Yuan a full-body massage. This degree of attack, even before transforming into a flood dragon, Lin Yuan did not care about it, let alone now that his body had been torn and reconstructed countless times. So ugly. Lin Yuan grinned and said with a cold smile, "At the beginning, your eyes were full of ferocity. When we were fighting, your eyes were full of horror. And now, after your method was broken by me, your eyes are only filled with despair. I can't see any other emotions at all." Speaking up to this point, Lin Yuan paused. The grin on his face widened, and he said loudly, "You're so afraid of death, yet you still came to explore the mystic realm like others?" Even though he was wrapped in a layer of flames, the Heavenly Dipper realm expert who summoned the firebird was still shivering from the cold. His lips were trembling, and he gritted his teeth and said, "I'm sorry, Lord Dragon King. I was blinded by lard before to go against you. Please be magnanimous and let me go this time. In the future, I'll be your slave." Lin Yuan's strength was far above his. And now, he was not even sure if Lin Yuan was really in a weakened state. "It's too late." Lin Yuan's indifferent voice sounded like an emotionless death god giving the final judgment. Chapter 340. The moment Lin Yuan's voice fell, the furious dragon water form had already whizzed out. This time, whether it was strength or speed, it was more than 10 times stronger than the previous furious dragon water form. The Heavenly Dipper realm expert, who was still begging for mercy, didn't even have time to dodge. His chest was directly penetrated by the huge furious dragon water phase, and the begging voice in his mouth stopped abruptly. A moment later, his whole body was torn apart, and directly shattered into dark red ice dregs all over the ground, which looked shocking. Seeing this scene, Shuiyang suddenly shuddered. If it wasn't for the trace of kindness in his heart that made him unable to lay his hands on Lin Yuan who saved his family, he might not end up any better than this guy today. Then, who is the next one? Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes looked around and asked in a joking tone. Voila dash. Just as Lin Yuan's voice fell, the remaining 4 Heaven Dipper realm powerhouses didn't dare to stay at all and directly flew in all directions. After all, the previous lesson was in front of them. They didn't want to be the next unlucky guy targeted by Lin Yuan, so at this time, they split up and ran. Whoever Lin Yuan chased after would be unlucky. After the 4 Heaven Dipper realm cultivators all fled 2 or 3 kilometers away, Lin Yuan's snake body swayed and opened his mouth to spit out a large mouthful of stagnant black blood. At this moment, the dragon power on his body also dissipated at this moment. The breath on his body began to weaken and he couldn't even maintain his current posture. He was directly on the verge of collapse. Chen Guanshan and Shuiyang looked at each other and saw a touch of horror in each other's eyes. How terrifying was the combat power that Lin Yuan broke out just now? Killing a Heaven Dipper realm powerhouse in an instant, even if he had the advantage of being underwater, it was undeniable that Lin Yuan really had the ability to kill the other party. Even if it was on land, Lin Yuan would have to spend a lot of effort at best. With this kind of combat power, he was actually an arrow at the end of its flight. If Lin Yuan wasn't in a weakened state, how terrifying would he be at his peak? Chen Guanshan took a step forward and supported Lin Yuan, who was on the verge of collapse. Let's go. Lin Yuan's weak voice sounded in his ears. Chen Guanshan was shocked and looked around nervously for a moment. Those who were able to cultivate to the Heaven Dipper realm were no fools. Lin Yuan was now just an arrow at the end of its flight. He took the opportunity to kill the Heaven Dipper realm expert who summoned the firebird. His purpose was to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. While these fellows were fleeing, he quickly left this place. Once those fellows found out that Lin Yuan wasn't chasing after them, they would inevitably find a way to come back to investigate the situation so that they could decide their next move. Therefore, leaving here now could give them a chance to breathe. Secondly, it could continue the fear in the other party's heart, making the other party mistakenly think that Lin Yuan wasn't chasing after one of the 4 people. Before the 4 people met, Lin Yuan's secret move wouldn't be exposed. Shuiyang and Chen Guanshan were slow to react. Fortunately, Lin Yuan did not have the strength to speak, so the 2 of them quickly carried Lin Yuan, one of them lifted his tail and the other carried his head, and escaped in the direction chosen by the 4 people. Lin Yuan couldn't even be bothered to speak at this moment. He didn't know what the dragonization route was, but its toxicity was far greater than Lin Yuan imagined. After all, it was something that even the system couldn't completely expel. Previously, Lin Yuan wanted to immediately add all the attribute points he had accumulated during this period to the interface after breaking through to the Mountain Lord realm. He wanted to quickly break through to the second level of the Mountain Lord realm and make use of the system's convenience of restoring him to his peak state when he leveled up to catch these Heaven Dipper realm experts off guard. However, he didn't expect the difference between the second level and the first level of the Mountain Lord realm to be so terrifying. Originally, when Lin Yuan was at the 10th level of the Wisdom realm, all his attributes had reached 700 points. During this period of time, he had accumulated 300 points. He felt that no matter how big the difference between the Mountain Lord realm and the Wisdom realm was, it shouldn't be so bad that he couldn't advance by one level after increasing all his attributes by half, right? However, in reality, it wasn't enough for him to advance. In reality, Lin Yuan didn't just add 300 points to his attributes. When he consumed the dragonization root, Lin Yuan's attack and defense had both increased by 150 points due to the constant tearing and rebirth of his body, as well as the effects of the dragonization root and the dragonization root. In addition, Lin Yuan added his own attribute points. Now, all of Lin Yuan's attributes had reached a whopping 1,300 points. And this wasn't even taking into account the defense provided by the dragon scale armor. With such a terrifying accumulation of data, Lin Yuan still wasn't able to smoothly break through to the second level of the Mountain Lord realm. This made Lin Yuan's heart turn cold. When he was in the Spirit Awakening realm, he only needed to add 1 point to the attribute points required to advance by one level. The Wisdom realm was even simpler. Other than the difference between the first level of the Wisdom realm and the 10th level of the Wisdom realm, the attribute points required to advance by one level didn't change at all. At one point, Lin Yuan felt that demonic beasts didn't need to rely on attribute points in the later stages. In the end, before he could even wake up from his dream, the system gave him another resounding slap on his face. He didn't even manage to advance by one level after spending a total of 600 points. He didn't even feel the bottleneck. Lin Yuan even felt that at this stage, if he wanted to rely on killing demonic beasts or humans to advance by one level, the people of the Shunwu dynasty would probably all be wiped out by him before he broke through to the peak of the Mountain Lord realm. Could it be that in the later stages, I have to use Joss Flames and War points to exchange for attribute points to advance? Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly as he pondered in his heart. Every time the system activated a template, if it wasn't something that he needed, then there must be some deeper meaning behind it. The faction battle template and the Joss Flames template were two completely different paths for Lin Yuan. One path required him to continuously provoke the various factions of the Qianwu continent, triggering war after war, and then completing these wars and war missions to obtain large amounts of war points. This path was a path that Lin Yuan had to take, but no one dared to say that they were an invincible general. There was an old saying in his previous life, "A general dies in 100 battles." No one dared to say that they could win for their entire life. Exchanging war points for attribute points was already a loss. If he lost a war or failed a war mission, the price he would have to pay wouldn't be small. As for collecting Joss Flames and converting them into attribute points, it was a very peaceful path. Although it was filled with countless bloodshed, even if he failed, he wouldn't have to pay any price. Moreover, according to the system's introduction of the Joss Flames template, every believer would provide him with Joss Flames every day, and it was a renewable resource. Chapter 341. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang carried Lin Yuan and sped away. Lin Yuan constantly adjusted his breathing. As time passed, his body did not get better as Lin Yuan expected. Instead, it became more and more dizzy and uncomfortable. However, in this state, Lin Yuan felt that his spirit was unprecedentedly strong. He could not even faint even if he wanted to. Ding, the foreign energy in the host's body has been completely removed. However, the changes caused by the foreign energy to the host are irreversible. Ding, due to the corrosion of the foreign energy, the host's innate talent, water affinity, has undergone an irreversible change. Innate talent, water affinity. Due to its characteristics, it has been officially renamed to Nether River Blackwater. Another series of system notifications sounded. Lin Yuan frowned slightly. However, he endured the fatigue and pain and opened his panel. Host, Lin Yuan status, Blackwater Nether Flood Dragon, mutated, realm, 2130 speed, 300 attack, 500 defense, 500 plus 100 demonic power, 2000 assignable attribute points, 0 innate talents. First, Eye of God. Based on the smell, it forms an accurate image of the surrounding 50,000 meters. The host can inspect the attributes of all creatures within the image range. This innate talent cannot be upgraded. It is a combination of innate talent 1, innate talent 2, and the special skill, Appraisal Eye. It can be switched on or off. The scanning range is calculated based on the host's demonic power. The host can only use the ability to inspect attributes 3 times a day. If the number of uses is maxed out, it will automatically enter a cooldown period. It can only be used again after 24 hours. This skill also has a failure rate. However, it has a 100% success rate for detecting creatures below the host's realm. It has a 50% success rate for creatures of the same realm as the host. For creatures above the host's realm, it has a 30% success rate. Second, Monarch of Water. You can take away the ability to control water from creatures whose realm is lower than yours or whose ability to control water is not as good as yours. This innate talent cannot be upgraded with attribute points. It can only be upgraded based on the host's understanding of the ability to control water. The current upgrade progress is 15,100. Third, Invisible Ice. Your ice spells cannot be detected before they are used on the enemy. This innate talent cannot be upgraded with attribute points. It can only be upgraded based on the host's understanding of the ability to control ice. The current upgrade progress is 10,300. Fourth, the Blood Sacrifice Wish Technique. Make a wish by using one's own blood or the blood of other living beings as a sacrifice. Whether or not the wish is fulfilled depends on the size of the wish and the quality of the sacrifice. This talent is a cause and effect skill. Offerings can be replaced with free attribute points. Each free attribute point is equivalent to a drop of the host's blood at the current stage. Regardless of whether the final wish is successful or not, the offerings will not be returned. 5. Flood Dragon Scale Armor. When the host's scale armor is in good condition, it can increase the host's defense by 20%. Congratulations, you've become a real Flood Dragon, so your Flood Snake Scale Armor has been changed to Flood Dragon Scale Armor. 6. Pseudo-Celestial Body. The host can control the size of his body at will. The smallest size can't be smaller than the smallest size of the species, and the largest size can't exceed the host's original size. This is a special skill. It can be upgraded, but it cannot be upgraded with free attribute points. Please find the way to upgrade it by yourself. The current upgrade progress is 0-100. 7. Dragon Aura. Although the host who has become a Flood Dragon is not an official member of the Dragon Clan, he has completely broken away from the ranks of ordinary beasts. When the host releases Dragon Aura, ordinary beasts will tremble in fear and will not dare to challenge the host's dignity. If the other party has the bloodline of a snake or flood dragon, the effect of this skill will be increased by 50%. It will only have a slight effect on beings with a higher bloodline or realm than the host. This skill doesn't have much lethality, unless the other party's realm is far lower than yours. Then, they might be scared to death by the host's gaze. However, when facing such trash, the host wouldn't really need to activate this skill, right? No way, right? 8. Black Water of the Styx River. The host will be the source of the Styx River and open up a Styx River that belongs to him. All the creatures killed by the host will float in this Styx River. The host can decide their future at any time. If the host is not willing to let them go, they will sink into it forever and won't even have the chance to be reincarnated. This skill seems to have come from an extremely terrifying plane. Even with the power of this system, I can only see a corner of it. This skill can be upgraded, but it can't be cultivated through normal means, and it can't be replaced with attribute point. The cultivation method of this talent is extremely evil. The more the host kills, the stronger this talent will be. Perhaps in time, the host will be able to open up a new netherworld based on himself. Martial Arts 1, Golden Body Secrets, Stage 3 Perfection. When the host consumed a special spiritual item to temper his body, this martial art was upgraded to the perfection stage. The host can activate or deactivate the Golden Body Secrets. When the Golden Body Secrets is activated, the host will obtain 65% damage immunity. Because the Golden Body Secrets has been perfected, normal attacks will no longer reduce the progress of the Golden Body Secrets. However, some special attacks can directly cripple the host's cultivation of the Golden Body Secrets. The host must take care and develop wretchedly. Don't be reckless. In addition, this martial art can only be evaluated as trash by the system. For a real magical power, this martial art can be shattered at any time. However, this martial art is not without any advantages. For example, the host can activate this martial art to disguise himself as a member of the Golden Dragon clan. 2. Tyrant Song of the World, Special Martial Art, cannot be upgraded. This martial art uses a special method to help the host speak. When the host speaks, the host's dignity is increased by 20%. Skills 1. Void Embrace, 2-10-500. When the skill is activated, the host can enter the void for a short period of time. 1 second after the skill is activated, the host will appear behind the target and attack. If the host doesn't have any special methods, it will be impossible to escape from the void's embrace. 2. Cursed Poison, 1-500. The host can use his own poison to replace the target's blood, controlling the target's life and death. Unless the host is immune to the poison, the host can control almost any existence corroded by his own cursed poison. 3. Sea Suppressing Tail, 0-500. Because the host has upgraded his Water Flood Dragon bloodline, the original Thorny Whip skill has been upgraded. Now, this skill can deal an additional 50 points of true damage to the target. However, without the power of vibration, when the host uses this skill in water, its power is increased by 50%. 4. Blood Boil Technique, 10-100. When the host activates the Blood Boil Technique, the host's attributes will be doubled for 3 minutes. The cooldown time is 3 days. 5. All Things Have Spirit, cannot be upgraded. The host can communicate with any creature through his thoughts, regardless of species or language. Chapter 342. Lin Yuan suddenly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. After looking at his attribute panel, although he was sure that most of his values had not changed, he still felt that he had become much stronger. As for the new talent ability, Lin Yuan could only laugh it off. The system itself was not a good thing. It strengthened the host through killing and war, and such an existence actually evaluated this new talent as extremely evil. How evil could it be? Could it be that this part of the soul that was absorbed into the river Styx was originally in the system's pocket, so the system was dissatisfied with this new talent? Although this talent did seem evil, it had to be said that the temptation of this talent for Lin Yuan was really terrifying. In all the worlds and countless myths, the most terrifying existence would always be the underworld. It was a place that controlled the life and death of countless creatures. Even a great cultivator who could turn the clouds and rain with a flip of his hand was under the jurisdiction of the underworld before he truly took the step of immortality. Therefore, although the underworld was under the jurisdiction of the heavenly court, strictly speaking, they were two systems. One was the immortal immortals, and the other was the immortal immortals who controlled life and death. If it were not for the human world in between, the two sides would not rest day and night, and would always be in a war. For example, in Lin Yuan's previous life, Hell and Heaven in the West, or Azura and God in India, there were too many such examples. And the system's evaluation of this talent was also extremely terrifying. In time, he could even open up a new underworld. As the master of the underworld, Lin Yuan had won at the starting line. Except for himself, no existence could harvest his soul. Even if his physical body collapsed and decayed, Lin Yuan could at most reincarnate and cultivate again. This new talent had almost allowed Lin Yuan to take a solid step on the step of immortality. As for the river Styx, it was an even more terrifying thing. The existences that were killed by Lin Yuan would be immersed in the river Styx that belonged to Lin Yuan for a long time. After a long time, even the most rational existence would go crazy. Once Lin Yuan had the intention to kill and released his river Styx, the first thing that the existences in the river Styx would do was to pull all the creatures they saw into the river Styx, massacring cities and destroying countries, in the blink of an eye. Even destroying the entire world was only a matter of time. Although Lin Yuan did not know what the dragonization route was, since it could bring such a terrifying change to him, it did not make sense that it would not be kept in the palace of the creator of this arcane realm, right? Either this thing appeared in the arcane realm after the creator of this arcane realm had fallen, or there was a great cause of great karma. Either that, or this thing had great karma, and even someone as powerful as the creator of this secret realm had to stay away from it. Lin Yuan did not know which was the case, but he did not doubt that he had already been tainted with great karma. Although he did not know whether the heavenly court and the underworld existed in the Qianwu continent, Lin Yuan could already conclude that the legends of his previous life were not groundless. If one day, Lin Yuan really found a way to return, what he would have to face would not be a group of simple cultivators and demonic beasts, but a group of terrifying existences that had been spreading throughout the world. Their influence spanned across the heavens and tens of thousands of worlds, and any one of them could be considered familiar with the terrifying existences. Lin Yuan had the river Styx, and in the future, he might even be able to create a new underworld that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the underworld and hell. Even if those almighty beings were not interested in the secrets on him, they would not allow an existence like him to continue growing. Looking around, he was surrounded by enemies. Lin Yuan, who had once again stepped into a new realm, did not feel much joy or relief. Instead, he felt that the burden on his shoulders had become even heavier. About 10 minutes later, Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang's foreheads were already sweating. After all, while Lin Yuan had shrunk his body, it did not mean that his weight had changed. 2 heavenly strength realm experts carrying a mountain lord level water jiao was a feat that no airborne realm cultivator would have dared to imagine. If they were in Lin Yuan's shoes, they would have been crushed into meat paste by his terrifying weight. It's about time. Let's rest for a while. Lin Yuan said weakly. It would not take long for those 4 to realize that Lin Yuan's previous performance was nothing more than an arrow at the end of its flight. They would return to the place where they fought Lin Yuan before. If they could not find Lin Yuan, their next step would be to return to the previous gathering place and wait for Lin Yuan to come knocking on their door. From their perspective, since Lin Yuan was unable to escape his weakened state, Lin Yuan would stay in that state for a long time. As long as they could catch Lin Yuan during that time, not only would they not have to worry about Lin Yuan's revenge when they got out, but they would also be able to explore the palace in the central region smoothly. As such, there was no way they would run away. After all, Lin Yuan's influence in the northern frontier was just too great. Unless the first thing they did after leaving here was to return to their families and inform them to give up on the northern frontier and quickly move to the south of the Shunwu dynasty, Lin Yuan's revenge was definitely not something that a few heavenly strength realm cultivators could handle. If a person's cultivation was really that useful, Du Xinghai would not have been exiled to the Hengduan mountain range, and Yang Xingqi would not have been sent to the bitter cold of the northern frontier to fend off the endless Yarrow beast. Not to mention Lin Yuan's gathering power in the Hengduan mountain range, even the 600,000 guards in the northern frontier could just stand there and let them cut them down. These heavenly strength realm cultivators would be exhausted to death. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang put Lin Yuan down and began to meditate to recover their strength. After a while, Shui Yang was the first to open his eyes and said with a frown, "This brother might have been taken by them as a barbarian from the Shuangjian dynasty, and my identity as the successor of the horse army has been exposed. Coupled with Lord Dragon King's current weakened state and his identity as a Yarrow beast, those 4 fellows will definitely target us when they return. So I think they will soon mobilize those airborne realm cultivators and begin to search for us." There was a saying in Lin Yuan's previous life that one's head decided one's bottom. It meant that the more capable one was, the higher one's position would be. However, this was applicable in a harmonious society. Although there was competition between people, it would not be too violent and bloody. However, in the Qianwu continent, One's bottom really decided one's head. If you don't stand on the side of the winner, then you can just wait for your death. This was not a joke, but a cruel reality. So, whether those people were willing or not, they would join the search for Lin Yuan and his group. Chapter 343. The two sides had been playing a game from the very beginning. Since it was not Lin Yuan who returned to the gathering place, regardless of how many Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators there were, they had absolute authority over the airborne realm cultivators. Even if there were a few dissenting voices, those voices would be quickly extinguished by them, and then they would quickly tie those people together and use them for their own purposes. If they did not want to become the target of public criticism, then the only way to break the situation was to immediately return to the gathering place and compete with the other side before everyone's opinions were unified on the matter of Lin Yuan. That might have been able to get those airborne realm cultivators to enter a wait-and-see state again. Unfortunately for them, Lin Yuan was currently in a weakened state. Even if airborne realm cultivators were to run into Lin Yuan, there was no guarantee that Lin Yuan would be able to take them down, let alone Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators. Chen Guanshan narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a deep voice, "So, we have to keep running? Do you have any other opinions?" Sigh. Shui Yang sighed and said bitterly, "We do have to keep running, but everyone has a map. If we were to head to some safer areas, we would be quickly found out. If we were to head to dangerous areas, we would not be able to guarantee our own safety. Secondly, we would probably run into some powerful people." Everyone had a map in hand. Although they had not explored the entire secret realm, they had explored all the nearby areas with the gathering place as the center. Those Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators were able to divide into teams according to the strength of the cultivators, searching for Lin Yuan and the others separately. After all, the secret realm was so big that it was not something that the four of them could have explored. That was why they went back to mobilize those airborne realm cultivators. Chen Guanshan's eyes flashed with a cold glint. He said in a cold voice, "If there is no safe place, then, run to areas that you have not explored." At such a juncture, even if Chen Guanshan was not in the mood to gamble, he had to make such a choice at the moment. Although there was no telling what kind of threats existed in the unknown areas, they would die sooner or later if they did not take the risk. On the other hand, those people who thought that they were sure to win would most likely not choose to enter the unknown areas to fight them if they could not find them in the explored areas. The most likely possibility was that they would block the exit and wait for them to walk into the trap. "I have no objections." Lin Yuan thought for a moment and quickly replied. He was well aware of his influence. Once he made it out of the mystic realm alive, even if he didn't do it himself, those forces who were waiting to curry favor with him would spare no effort to take revenge on those who had tried to hit Lin Yuan while he was down. Therefore, from now on, apart from Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang, no one else in the mystic realm wished to see Lin Yuan leave alive. Meanwhile, on the shore outside the mystic realm, Lei Yifan was holding a long sword with both hands, his clear black and white eyes filled with coldness. Behind him, a group of northern frontier guards dressed in silver armor were pressing down the cultivators who had been helped up from the water onto the ground, punching and kicking those who were struggling from time to time. After all, after the mystic realm had opened, it was no longer a secret that Lin Yuan wanted to enter the mystic realm. But these cultivators had still chosen to come over and try their luck. Some of them might have been forced to do so, but strictly speaking, these cultivators usually did not think much of Lin Yuan, the actual ruler of the northern frontier. In the past, these people had all been hiding in the dark and hence the northern frontier duke's residents could not do anything to them. But now, the place they were in was part of the Hengduan Mountains and with the proof given by Lin Yuan, the guards of the northern frontier could do whatever they wanted here. But cultivators did not have the same treatment. So even if Lei Yifan killed all of them here, no one would dare to say anything against Lei Yifan. As for those cultivators who thought they had some martial prowess and wanted to fight their way out of the northern frontier guards' encirclement, Lei Yifan did not kill them all. On the contrary, the guards of the northern frontier guards had done their best to go easy on those who had tried to break out of the encirclement. What did they think was outside the northern frontier guards' encirclement? Was it a vast wilderness? No, it was a group of monsters led by Huan Yu, Na Qin, and Bai Lu. Although there were no mountain lords, but compared to the airborne realm cultivators, there were quite a number of wisdom realm monsters. Although this was Lin Yuan's personal matter, the beast kings nearby had all benefited greatly from Lin Yuan. Although they did not participate in the battle in name, they had secretly lent Bai Lu quite a number of wisdom realm monsters to participate in the battle. If they were to fall into Lei Fan's hands, they might be able to put up a fight. But if they were to fall into the hands of the monsters, they might not even be able to leave a complete corpse. Hearing the shrill screams that kept ringing in his ears, the corners of Lei Fan's mouth curled up slightly, the coldness in his eyes growing. Beside Lei Fan was a middle-aged man holding a long halberd, dressed in bright silver armor. At that moment, his eyes were closed and no one knew what he was thinking. Many pairs of expectant gazes fell upon him, but they did not get any response. In the end, those cultivators who had been tied up by the guards of the northern frontier all showed a look of despair. Even Yang Xingqi was on the black snake's side. In fact, as the guardian of the northern frontier, Yang Xingqi did not have a good impression of Lin Yuan. After all, the monsters that he had come into contact with in the past were all cruel and bloodthirsty creatures. But there were not many of them who had a good impression of humans. If it was not for the fact that the Void Realm cultivators were not allowed to interfere in battles where there were no cultivators of the same cultivation level, with his battle prowess, Lin Yuan might not have been able to conquer Shunning City. However, during this period of time when Lin Yuan was overseeing the northern frontier, other than the Blackwater Dragon King Temple that he did not understand, Yang Xingqi really could not find any fault with Lin Yuan. Now, the entire northern frontier was thriving under Lin Yuan's rule, and there was no longer any signs of hardship. Ever since he was exiled to the northern frontier, Yang Xingqi had treated this place as his hometown. The arrival of the Black Snake, not only did it not cause the northern frontier to fall into chaos, it had instead led the entire northern frontier to a better direction. Yang Xingqi naturally had no reason to oppose Lin Yuan. On the contrary, in the dark, Yang Xingqi had also used his influence to help Lin Yuan get rid of the infiltration of some of the bigger powers. Otherwise, the northern frontier today would not be so united. Senior Yang, if you don't have the heart, you should go back to Shunning City and rest. Lei Fan walked over to Yang Xingqi's side and said in a gentle voice, "Any change will be accompanied by pain. No matter what we do in the future, but for now, our existence is good for the entire northern frontier. The sooner we get rid of these stumbling blocks, the better it will be for everyone. Monthly ticket, 20 plus more, delivered." Chapter 344. I understand, I understand. Yang Xingqi waved his hand lightly, a dim look flashing past his eyes as he frowned and said, "But, I must meet this Black Snake. Otherwise, some decisions will not be easy to make. No one can guarantee that when the Black Snake is the only voice left in the northern frontier, it will still be able to rule over the northern frontier." There were many sects in the northern frontier. Although there were not many in the Void Realm, but there were still some. Lin Yuan's actions today had placed him on the opposite side of these sects. Although both sides were accumulating strength, but the conflict would erupt sooner or later. When that time came, with Lin Yuan's strength, if he did not invite the great demonic beasts from the Hengduan Mountains, he would not be able to contend against the power of these sects. After all, at the point of life and death, who would care about rules? When the time came, the Void Realm existence would definitely come to deal with Lin Yuan. But if Lin Yuan were to invite the desolate demon realm great demonic beasts from the Hengduan Mountains, then the consequences would be, those great demonic beasts were not existences that Lin Yuan could control. Once the human side broke the rules first. Then if those great demonic beasts did not kill to their heart's content, they would not be worthy of the title of beast. So before things reached that stage, Yang Xingqi wanted to see what kind of existence Lin Yuan was, and whether it was worth it for him to sacrifice his old face to protect Lin Yuan's right to rule. Someone else has come out. Lei Fan suddenly furrowed his brows and muttered under his breath. Previously, those who came out of the lake were those who did not have the qualifications to enter the mystic realm. But these people were more or less under their control. Even the guards from the northern frontier had personally entered the lake to search but did not discover the existence of any cultivators below. Now, another person had appeared out of nowhere. Then this person should have already entered the mystic realm and came out again. But why was it so fast? Poof! A cultivator in ragged clothes, his entire body covered in filthy blood, broke through the surface of the water and tumbled onto the shore, panting heavily. His chest heaved up and down violently, and the breath on his body was weak. Lei Fan had no doubt that if this guy were to continue lying down like this, he would have to swallow his last breath sooner or later. After carefully sizing up the other party for a moment, Lei Fan's face suddenly changed as he roared angrily, "Quick! Save them!" He recognized that person. That person was a spy of the Demon Emperor Association in a second-rate sect in the northern frontier. This time, he was ordered by the sect to enter the mystic realm to search for treasures. But looking at the other party's current appearance, it was obvious that his identity had been exposed. Otherwise, the injuries on his body would not have been caused by swords and sabers. The dark child raised a hand, adjusted his breathing, and said with all his might, "There's no need. I know my own body very well. There's no saving it. Northern Frontier King, quickly organize people to enter the mystic realm and rescue the Demon Emperor. Several Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouses are organizing people to surround and kill the Demon Emperor." Before he could finish speaking, the spy had already taken his last breath. Lei Fan's eyes were bloodshot and he was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Previously, when Lin Yuan wanted to enter the mystic realm, he had already objected to it. Now, something had indeed happened. Although Lei Fan did not know what had happened in the mystic realm, but several Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouses were organizing people to surround and kill Lin Yuan, who was at the peak of the wisdom opening state. No matter how he looked at it, the situation was extremely dangerous. Therefore, there was not much time left for him. If Lin Yuan were to die in the mystic realm, he did not dare to think about the consequences. The reason why the northern frontier could prosper and develop was because of Lin Yuan's existence. Once Lin Yuan died, the northern frontier would lose the support of the Hengduan Mountains. All the advantages they had now would be gone. Facing the weapons of the Shunwu dynasty, they would not have any ability to resist. When that time came, including him, no one would have a good ending. "Damn it, you won't let me have a good life. Then no one can have a good life." Lei Fan cursed fiercely, his pair of purple eyes flashing with a cold light. If the Northern Frontier sects did not let the Northern Frontier King have a good life, the Northern Frontier King would dare to declare that the Northern Frontier would no longer have a place for the sects to survive. Yang Xingqi frowned slightly and asked, "Why don't I go down and take a look?" This doesn't follow the rules." Lei Fan sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Yang Xingqi in disbelief. "Rules? TSK." Yang Xingqi laughed coldly and said eerily, "What are the rules?" "Some people say that these are the rules. Just as I expected, there is only one entrance to the mystic realm. As long as everyone dies in there, who would say that I have broken the rules? A kind man would not be an official, and a kind man would not command an army. As a general of the Thousand Swords dynasty who was as famous as Lei Chouxing during the Zhu Xinghai era, Yang Xingqi would not be so inflexible to adhere to some rules. He would also not be nice to those who stood against him. Then, I will have to trouble Senior." Lei Fan cupped his hands towards Yang Xingqi, the joy in his eyes hidden very well. Once Yang Xingqi made a move for Lin Yuan, it was equivalent to being tied to their war chariot. The Northern Region Lord's Mansion could be said to have a Kongming Realm powerhouse in charge, and without a Kongming Realm powerhouse in charge, it could be said to be a completely different force. From today onwards, if any powers wanted to reach out to the Northern Frontier, they would have to consider Yang Xingqi's wishes. The cold smile on Yang Xingqi's face did not fade as he narrowed his eyes and said, "I have yet to promise you that I will go down to save that black snake. If it is worthy of my help, I will not hesitate. But if it is not to my liking, I might not even let that black snake go this time." Although he had a good impression of Lin Yuan for the time being, Yang Xingqi was, after all, an existence that had experienced the change of the dynasty. The existence of an opponent and the existence of an opponent are two completely different things. Since ancient times, the collapse of a dynasty was not mostly because of external enemies, but because of their own auxiliary profession. For example, in the Ming and Song dynasties of Lin Yuan's previous life, who was not invincible when they were surrounded by foreign enemies? Now that Lin Yuan was in the northern frontier, he still had opponents like the sects and aristocratic families, so Lin Yuan's wisdom could be because Lin Yuan had always been like that, or it could be because Lin Yuan was forced to put on an act. What Yang Xingqi wanted to do was to see if Lin Yuan was really like that, or if he had put on a mask for himself. Let's go. Without waiting for Lei Yifan to open his mouth, Yang Xingqi's figure flashed as he leapt high up into the air. Like a falling meteor, he smashed heavily into the lake. In an instant, all the water in the lake was suspended in the air. The fishes in the water did not even know what had happened before they were smashed into minced meat by the powerful impact, dyeing a large area of the lake red. Immediately, the lake water returned to its original position, as calm as ever, as though nothing had happened. Monthly ticket, full 40 tickets plus updates. Chapter 345. 2 flowers bloomed, one on each branch. We're about done here. Lin Yuan, who was being carried by Shui Yang and Chen Guanshan, raised his eyelids and said slowly. As a powerful demon beast, Lin Yuan was very sensitive to danger. After all, in order to survive in the forest, in addition to one's own strength, one must be sensitive to the appearance of danger. Otherwise, one could become food in the stomach of those more powerful predators at any time. For example, at this moment, Lin Yuan clearly sensed a powerful aura from the water in front, which was why he asked the two to stop. Because at the same time he sensed the other party also sensed his existence. However, the other party did not intend to attack him for the time being. It only slightly flashed its aura, as if warning Lin Yuan that the water in front of them was its territory. This place, Shui Yang frowned slightly. Although they had already gone far beyond the explored areas, if those cultivators wanted to take the risk and go deeper, they would immediately be discovered. At that time, if something were to happen, carrying a huge burden like Lin Yuan, they would not be able to outrun those cultivators. Chen Guanshan also frowned slightly, but soon, Chen Guanshan shook his head and said, although I also feel that it is not safe to stay here, if those guys really want to chase us, no matter how deep we go, they will still find us. It is better to take the opportunity to rest for a while. In case we run into something later, we won't even have the strength to fight back. This junior was chased by a group of humans to this place. I will borrow senior's place to rest for a while. I will leave when my injuries are slightly better. Lin Yuan did not pay attention to Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang, but said solemnly to the water in front of him. In response to Lin Yuan, there was silence. Chen Guanshan's brows that had just relaxed frowned again, and his right hand subconsciously touched his waist. Lin Yuan had just suddenly shouted to stop, and in addition to his current performance, if he still did not realize that there was a terrifying existence in front of him, then he should not have lived until today. Shui Yang's face was also full of vigilance. He looked at the water in front of him and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. The demonic beasts of the secret realm were all extremely hostile to humans. For example, the School of Intelligence State Level 4 silver fish. Even if they knew that they might not be a match for humans, they would still brazenly attack humans. So whether this terrifying existence in front of them would directly attack them was really unknown. The atmosphere was like a taut string that could snap with the slightest provocation. At this moment, the water in front of them trembled, and a dull voice sounded, yes. His actions caused Lin Yuan and the others to heave a sigh of relief. They all collapsed onto the ground and began to adjust their breathing. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged on the ground and looked at the water in front of him. A hint of contemplation flashed through his multicolored eyes. For some reason, Lin Yuan felt that the being in front of him was very friendly. It was different from the friendliness between people of the same race. It was more like an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. That was why Lin Yuan took the risk of provoking the other party and took the initiative to speak. F***CK, they're here. Chen Guanshan suddenly cursed and stood up abruptly from the ground. Immediately, there was a burst of noise behind him. It was obvious that someone was heading this way. We seem to have made a big mistake. Shui Yang turned his head and glanced, then suddenly said. Following Shui Yang's gaze, Chen Guanshan's face suddenly darkened. Because they had been fleeing in a panic, they did not notice some details. For example, when the two of them carried Lin Yuan and ran, they left very deep footprints along the way. They did not bother to cover up as they fled in a panic. They did not notice it before, but now that they suddenly turned around and saw it, they suddenly felt as if they had cerebral palsy. They had left such obvious footprints for the other party. Now, perhaps everyone had followed the footprints and chased after them. Chen Guanshan shook his head, and the gloominess on his face dissipated. He said in a low voice, "At this point, wallowing in self-pity won't solve the problem. We have no other choice but to go all out and fight." Soon, a large group of cultivators appeared in their sight. The 4 Heaven Dipper realm experts in the lead were among them. One of them took a step forward and said coldly, "We were almost cheated by you, beast. Sure enough, you demonic beasts are all cunning and vicious. Black Snake, Grandpa advises you to cooperate with us obediently. Perhaps you still have a chance of survival. Otherwise, don't blame Grandpa for being ruthless." Lin Yuan raised his eyelids, and a sneer flashed across his heterochromatic vertical pupils. He tilted his head and said, "Who did you call cunning and vicious just now?" "I'm talking about you, you demonic beast. You demonic beasts deserve to die. None of you are good." The Heaven Dipper realm cultivator obviously did not expect that Lin Yuan not only did not panic, but also dared to question him. He suddenly felt that he had lost face in front of everyone. In addition, he was frightened by Lin Yuan when he killed one of his companions. He really wanted to tear apart Lin Yuan, this cunning and vicious person. "Then you deserve to die." Lin Yuan's voice sounded like a biting cold wind. The Heaven Dipper realm expert swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and there was a touch of fear in his eyes. He stared blankly behind Lin Yuan. Shui Yang and Chen Guanshan, who were confused by the other party's reaction, also turned their heads with a blank face. Suddenly, the two people's eyes showed horror at the same time. Even Chen Guanshan, an old dog with a stable mentality, couldn't help but tremble at this moment. Eyes. It was a gigantic brass-colored vertical pupil. The brass vertical pupil, the bumpy skin, the oval-shaped head grew into a bumpy pentagon with sharp edges on this monster's body. Even the upper jaw and lower jaw were like 2 hacksaws biting together. No one doubted that even the Heaven Dipper realm expert couldn't withstand a bite from it. If it wasn't for the other party's 4 limbs on the ground and the mountain-like giant shell on the body, no one would think that this monster, which looked like a killing machine at first glance, would be a tortoise demonic beast known for its defensive power. Xian Wu. Lin Yuan slowly read out the name of this demonic beast. In the state of God's eye, Lin Yuan could see things that these humans couldn't see. For example, the tail hidden behind this monster was not an ordinary tail at all, but a scarlet long snake. At the end of its tail, there was a snake head with a hideous smile. Tortoise head, snake tail. Even if the other party's appearance was fierce, no one could deny that this big guy was a Xian Wu. Monthly tickets full of 60 tickets plus updates delivered. Chapter 346. The monster was slightly startled when it saw Lin Yuan call out its species. It then immediately swung its right claw out, crushing all of the airborne realm cultivators in front of it into minced meat. The pungent smell of blood immediately filled the air. That heavenly strength realm cultivator, who had been shouting, had already escaped from the black tortoise's attack range while the monster was still slightly stunned. Even so, the wind from the monster's palm still pushed that heavenly strength realm cultivator back. However, the strange thing was that such a terrifying attack from the monster did not create any rapids or small whirlpools at the bottom of the water. It was as if there was an invisible force suppressing the water. The black tortoise? That's not it anymore. The monster lowered its head and muttered silently. However, the huge monster soon raised its head again. Its eyes were filled with endless malice and hostility when it looked at the large group of humans in front of it. The heavenly strength realm cultivator, who had been shouting at Lin Yuan before, gulped and felt his legs go weak. He did not dare to look at the huge monster in front of him at all. That was because he knew very well that if it had not been for Lin Yuan calling out that strange name and causing the monster to be startled for a while, he would have been no different from those airborne realm cultivators who had been killed by the monster. They would have all been reduced to minced meat under the monster's palm. The monster raised its right claw to its mouth and slowly extended its barbed tongue, gently licking the flesh and blood on the claw clean. A look of joy suddenly appeared in its eyes. This guy. A thin layer of cold sweat oozed from Shuiyang's forehead. That monster of unknown origin seemed to have a strong hatred for humans. The two of them were able to live peacefully with the monster because they were on Lin Yuan's side. However, killing was something that could easily affect one's mind. Who knew if the monster would go berserk and not even let Shuiyang and Chen Guanshan go? The secret realm was not small, but less than 1/5 of the area had been explored. Lin Yuan had randomly chosen an area to enter, and he had already encountered such a terrifying monster. Shuiyang did not even dare to imagine if there would be something even more terrifying in the further areas. Under the joint blockade of the northern frontier by all the major sects and clans, even a clan like the Qiao clan had not been able to get any information about the secret realm. It was obvious that the Freedom Courtyard was a top-notch clan and clans, and they did not want the Qiao clan to get a share of the pie. That was enough to prove that they valued the secret realm. If they valued the secret realm so much, why did they only explore 1/5 of the area? Was it because they did not dare or because they could not? Shuiyang was not the only Shuiyang. Lin Yuan. That was because he found that there were too many unsolved mysteries in the secret realm. For example, the strange spiritual object known as the dragonization root. It had nothing to do with the Dragon Clan, but it could allow the existence of the Dragon Clan's bloodline to advance to a higher level. However, it had something to do with the Dragon Clan, and it had given Lin Yuan a mutated innate ability that was related to the underworld. There was also the monster with the head of a turtle and the tail of a snake in front of him. It was obviously the black tortoise that he had heard of in his previous life. However, whether it was its appearance or temperament, it did not seem to have anything to do with a divine beast or an auspicious sign. Furthermore, from the reaction of Shuiyang and the others when they saw the monster, they probably did not know of the existence of the black tortoise. However, this world had Kirin, the Dragon Clan, and even the phoenix that controlled the sky. Why did the black tortoise, which was also a divine beast, not exist in this world? A moment later, Lin Yuan's face suddenly changed. There were bursts of severe pain all over his body, as if he was being roasted over a fire. If snakes had sweat glands, then Lin Yuan would probably be sweating profusely at this moment because of the pain. At first, Lin Yuan thought that this was one of the side effects of the dragonization root. However, he soon realized that the monster's killing of humans had slowed down a lot. It was obviously suffering from an unknown pain. However, Chen Guanshan and Shuiyang, who were standing beside Lin Yuan, looked calm and unruffled. Even the pursuers did not seem to have any abnormalities other than being chased around by the monster in front of them. Very obviously, this pain came from the water region that was suppressed by a mysterious force. Furthermore, it was targeted at them, the demonic beast. Lin Yuan suddenly felt a buzzing sound in his ears. Almost subconsciously, he turned his head. Suddenly, he seemed to see a golden light coming from the depths of the water region. In the blink of an eye, it swept past Lin Yuan's line of sight and went straight to the monster. It was only at this moment that Lin Yuan heard clearly that the buzzing sound in his ears was actually Buddhist chanting. Sea Protector Black Tortoise, this poor monk remembered your meritorious service in controlling the flood years ago. Therefore, this poor monk did not take your life. Therefore, this poor monk suppressed you in this water region and cleansed your body and mind with Buddhist scriptures day and night. Who would have thought that this poor monk's carelessness would allow this evil creature to escape? Amitabha, this poor monk has sinned, this poor monk has caused you to lose so many lives again. The golden light hovered above the monster's head. A gentle voice came from the golden light. The monster just waved its claws impatiently and said coldly, I say, this monk is so annoying. I can become whatever I want. What does it have to do with you? Look at you, you have been dead for so many years. Your bones have rotted and only this Sarira is left. How dare you meddle in other people's business? Aren't you afraid that your soul will scatter and you will not enter the cycle of reincarnation? The golden light smiled faintly and chanted again. He said in a deep voice, Buddha says, if I don't enter hell, who will? If this poor monk's soul scatters, this poor monk can help you cross the sea of bitterness. This poor monk can save the common people from an unavoidable calamity. Surya, monk. These two keywords appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. Although there were also Buddhist sects in Sky Marshall Continent, their cultivation method was different from the Buddhist sects in his previous life. They cultivated the present life. No matter how strong a Buddhist cultivator was, after death, there would be no such thing as a Surya. Only Buddhist disciples in his previous life would cultivate the afterlife and cultivate good karma. Only after a senior monk died would he leave behind something like a Surya. The most important thing was that this monster and the Surya were not talking in the common language of Sky Marshall Continent, but the language of Lin Yuan's previous life. Even if the syllables were a little strange, Lin Yuan could still understand the conversation between these two terrifying existences without using the spirit of all things. In comparison, the Sky Marshall Continent's cultivators were all at a loss. Could it be that this black tortoise and this Surya were both from Earth? Those legendary existences had indeed descended to this world, left behind their inheritances, and even their bloodlines, and then left this world. Monthly tickets, full 80 tickets plus updates. Chapter 347. The monster snorted coldly and no longer bothered with the Surya. Despite the golden light filling the sky and the Buddhist chanting, the monster showed no intention of stopping. Instead, its killing intent grew stronger and stronger. It even crashed into the crowd and began to slaughter the airborne realm cultivators who were unable to evade its attacks in a frenzy. The Surya obviously did not have the ability to fight on its own. Otherwise, it would not have just been chanting in midair. Under such circumstances, the Surya could only sigh slightly. Its chanting grew louder and louder. Lin Yuan's consciousness gradually became blurred under the chanting of the Buddhist chanting. It was as if there were countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas preaching to him. His eyelids grew heavier and heavier as they continued to droop. When he looked at the cultivators who forced him into a corner, Lin Yuan's eyes were no longer filled with hatred and fighting intent. Instead, he looked as calm as water, as if nothing in the world had anything to do with him. Wake up. Suddenly, the monster's loud and violent voice was also heard beside Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was startled and instantly woke up from his previous state of purity. He looked at the Surya floating in midair with eyes full of horror. It was not that he did not have means similar to mental attacks. For example, he was able to do something similar with the Song of the World. However, Lin Yuan was at most able to increase his deterrence through the power of his words, making the creatures he faced fear him. However, in that instant, Lin Yuan was almost directly converted by the Surya's chanting of the Buddhist chanting. And this was under the condition that the main target of the Surya was the monster. This is between you and me. Don't involve outsiders. The monster spoke again and looked coldly at the Surya, saying in a cold voice, although I can't destroy you, I can suppress you for 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, until the last remnant of your soul is destroyed. Faced with the monster's threat, the Surya turned a deaf ear and said indifferently, Sea Guardian Black Tortoise, I will never watch you fall into the demonic path. If you continue to kill here, I will never leave. Lin Yuan vaguely guessed something at that point. Both the Surya and the monster used to be powerful beings. They might even have been comrades who fought side by side. But what kind of terrifying existence would such an existence face? The eminent monk had perished, and the black tortoise had fallen to the demonic path. Between the two of them, one was imprisoned here by an unknown force, while the other had to stay here and cleanse the other's demonic heart with Buddhist scriptures day and night, helping the other maintain his consciousness. Lin Yuan even rejoiced. It was precisely because of the existence of this relic that this monster, which had evolved from the black tortoise, had not completely fallen into the demonic path and become a demonic beast that only knew how to kill. Otherwise, they would have been torn to shreds by this monster the moment they set foot in these waters. Kai the monster sneered. Although it didn't give in, it stopped killing. It looked down at the shivering humans and said loudly, "If you leave my territory, I can let you go." Boom. Before the monster could finish speaking, a terrifying shockwave exploded with him as the center. Even the monster's huge body was pushed back 30 to 40 meters by this terrifying force. "We did it." A Heavenly Dipper realm fighter's face flashed with joy. He said in a deep voice, "Brothers, this monster took a hit from us. Even if it didn't die on the spot, it must have been seriously injured. Everyone, let's fight together. This monster's strength is so terrifying that its flesh and monster pill must be very valuable. It might even help us break through to the next realm." When his voice fell, although the Heavenly Dipper realm fighter's face showed joy, there was an extremely calm silence in the depths of his eyes. He had no intention of killing the monster at all. After going through a round of screening in the secret realm and being slaughtered by this monster, almost all of the cultivators who were still alive were at level 9 and 10 of the airborne realm. Many of the cultivators could even be said to be half a step into the Heavenly Dipper realm. If they were to use all of their means, they could even wrestle with real Heavenly Dipper realm fighters. One step further and they would be Heavenly Dipper realm fighters. Although none of these cultivators were fools, it was impossible to say that they could just stand by and do nothing when such a huge benefit was right in front of them. Therefore, even if they knew that the Heavenly Dipper realm fighter had spoken, they still could not help but be tempted. Soon, the first cultivator strode towards the monster. At that moment, the tide had yet to subside, and the sand that was stirred up had yet to fall. It was impossible to see what was ahead with the naked eye. However, the other 5 senses of the cultivators were still abnormally sharp, and they soon caught a strange sound of something tearing through the air. Whoosh! A scarlet snake's head passed through countless sand and appeared in front of the cultivators in an instant. It opened its bloody mouth and bit the first cultivator who moved, then swallowed him whole. "Why is there another monster?" Soon, some of the cultivators exclaimed. Their faces were filled with unconcealable fear. One monster was enough for them to deal with, and now there was another blood snake. Chen Guanshan's slightly furrowed brows relaxed, and there was even a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Previously, when the monster was ambushed by the Heavenly Dipper realm fighter, he secretly broke out in a cold sweat. After all, the monster was still on their side, and it could still suppress the pursuers. However, once the monster was defeated, the pursuers would attack them. In the face of an unknown monster, these cultivators might feel fear and be restrained. But in the face of Lin Yuan, He, and Shui Yang, these guys would not be merciful. They would even vent some of their previous shock and fear on them. But now, the situation had reversed once again. While Chen Guanshan was worried that this new monster would attack them, he also heaved a sigh of relief and a strange glint flashed in his eyes. He strode to Lin Yuan's side and said in a deep voice, "Previously, there was a rumor that you were the reincarnation of the ancient demon emperor. At first, I didn't believe it, even if you took out an Earth-class lower-grade physique training skill. After all, opportunity is something that everyone can have. You also didn't say that the physique training skill was an ancient inheritance, but now, I believe it. Because experience can't be faked. You even know what a monster like that is." Chen Guanshan suddenly felt that it was not so unacceptable to be Lin Yuan's lackey. Was it possible for anyone to be the lackey of the ancient demon emperor? Monthly ticket of 100 plus updates. Chapter 348. What are you trying to say? Lin Yuan raised his eyelids and said casually while sorting out the hidden injuries left in his heart by the Buddhist chanting. Chen Guanshan chuckled and asked without holding back, "I just want to ask if that black tortoise you mentioned can win against these guys who are blinded by greed." The name Black Tortoise was very unfamiliar to the Qianwu continent, so when Chen Guanshan said it out loud, he still felt a bit awkward. However, that didn't stop him from expressing his thoughts. They had only just entered an unexplored area, and they already encountered this monster and a golden ball of light that spoke a language they didn't understand. Who knew how many more terrifying things there were in this secret realm? Can it win? I don't know. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. He narrowed his eyes and said, You should be asking if these guys can still find a complete corpse after enraging the black tortoise. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. As one of the 4 sacred beasts, the black tortoise was undoubtedly an extremely terrifying existence. Even if the one in front of him was just a monster with the bloodline of the black tortoise, its strength and realm were still unfathomable. He, who was a level 1 mountain lord, used the active effect of the Eye of God to check the black tortoise's attributes 3 times, and the result was that he failed 3 times in a row. That meant that the black tortoise was at least 3 levels higher than him. Even if the black tortoise was a level 4 river lord, with the enhancement of the monster's physique and the bloodline of the sacred beasts, it was not an existence that 4 heavenly strength realm cultivators and a group of airborne realm cultivators who were cannon fodders could challenge. Boom! A loud noise was heard. The gravel that was sent flying and the turbulent water flow calmed down almost instantly. That blood snake that rushed out to kill wantonly retreated silently. When the dust settled and everyone saw the monster again, they all gasped and looked at each other. Some of the more cowardly ones even began to tremble at the legs and began to blame those heavenly strength realm cultivators for being blinded by greed and acting on their own initiative to attack that terrifying monster. Otherwise, they would have already left that dangerous area. The blood snake, which had chased countless cultivators until there was nowhere to run, was now coiled around the monster's shell. Everyone took a closer look at it and immediately caused them to gasp. That was not a blood snake at all. That was the tail of that monster. What the hell is that thing? An airborne realm cultivator asked while trembling. Monsters with 2 heads were not uncommon. Within the jurisdiction of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, there was a type of monster with a lower body that looked like a lizard, covered in green scales, and 9 snake heads. There was also the 2-headed grey eagle that Lin Yuan had fought before in the northern frontier. That was why monsters with several heads were not rare. However, it was the first time they saw something like that monster, which had a tortoise head on the front and a blood snake tail on the back. It was as if the 2 types of monsters were pieced together. The visual impact of such a monster was not something that common monsters could compare to. Even Chen Guanshan, who had been prepared for it, almost gasped. Eventually, he turned his eyes to Lin Yuan and began to think about where Lin Yuan came from. "Senior, if it's possible, let me take care of these people." Lin Yuan suddenly spoke in the language of his previous life. Although he had not spoken for more than a year, and his vocal organs were completely different from humans, Lin Yuan's standard Mandarin from his previous life still sounded like barbecued meat in his current life. It was not that Lin Yuan was greedy for the benefits that those humans could bring him. With his current level of cultivation as a mountain lord, only those 4 heavenly strength realm fighters could provide him with a certain amount of attribute points. Lin Yuan just did not want that black tortoise, which had already turned into a demon, to go on the path of killing again. Although the Saria had almost converted Lin Yuan did not have much hatred towards the Saria. On the contrary, he admired the Saria's way of doing things. He had clearly died many years ago, but because he did not want this black tortoise to enter the Sky Martial continent and cause a storm of blood, he gave up on the chance of reincarnation and used Buddhist scriptures to cleanse this black tortoise's soul. Those who could refine Sariras after death were not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry. They were all accomplished monks. Once an existence like him entered the cycle of reincarnation, even if he did not embark on the path of cultivation in his next life, he would still be a young master of a wealthy family, living a carefree life. Although Lin Yuan had not seen any demons and monsters in the Sky Martial continent, after consuming the dragon transformation route, Lin Yuan already possessed his own river Styx. Even if the river Styx was still very weak and could not be summoned. Can you do it? Although the monster did not have any ill intentions towards Lin Yuan, and even tried its best to protect Lin Yuan, this did not conflict with its respect for Lin Yuan. Even if Lin Yuan was at his peak, he was not a match for it, let alone the current Lin Yuan who was extremely weak. Junior said before that I only wish to rest in Senior's territory for a while. Once my injuries are healed, I will leave. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes swept across the faces of those cultivators who were so frightened that they did not dare to make a sound. He sneered, "Also, These people have been chasing Junior all the way. If I cannot personally take back my face, I am afraid that I will have a heart demon in the future. I hope Senior can help Junior this once. Lin Yuan did not know to what extent this black tortoise had turned into a demon, but he was sure that every time this black tortoise killed a little more, it would be a little further away from returning to normal. So what if it could never become the sea-suppressing black tortoise that the Saria spoke of in its lifetime? At least right now, it still had its own consciousness. Lin Yuan did not know what this black tortoise and the Saria had encountered back then, but since everyone was on the same side now, Lin Yuan did not wish for this black tortoise to fall deeper and deeper into the abyss because of some small matter on his body. The Saria gave off a golden light and said in a deep voice, "Sea-suppressing black tortoise, look, this little friend is more sensible than you. You and I have known each other for so many years, how can I harm you? With you here, these little fellows will not harm this little black Jiao. I fear they will want to have 2 more legs and leave this ghastly place as soon as possible." The monster thought for a moment, and then a touch of sadness flashed through its eyes. It said in a deep voice, "Human, I will give you one last chance. If you get out of my territory now, I can let bygones be bygones. But if you want to stay, haha. Monthly ticket full 120 plus updates delivered." Chapter 349. The monster's words made the group of humans feel as if they had been pardoned. They all turned around and ran, as if they were afraid that the monster would go back on its words. After the pursuers scattered, the monster's gaze landed on Lin Yuan. It asked, "Since you know the language of the ancient demon court, it means that you and I are of the same origin. But why do I feel so unfamiliar with your bloodline? Which branch do you belong to?" Lin Yuan was speechless. Suddenly, the air quietened down. In Lin Yuan's previous life, Lin Yuan could have dug up the family tree and talked to the monster. But now, the water dragon bloodline in his body was given by the system. There was no clan behind him. How could he belong to any branch? Even if he was sure that the monster and the relic came from the mythical system of his previous life, those legends were still too far away from ordinary people. The so-called scholars had their own opinions. It seemed like there was a complete system, but strictly speaking, there was only a name of the god system. Even the authority of some gods was still being debated. Seeing that Lin Yuan was silent, the monster laughed dryly and said bitterly, "Since you don't want to say, then forget it. Anyway, my brain is getting worse. Even if you tell me, I might not be able to remember. I just thought that I saw the descendant of an old friend. That's why I asked." Lin Yuan's polite smile was a little awkward. He watched as the monster and the relic returned to the depths of the water. Lin Yuan exhaled a long breath of foul air. So, the ancient demon court really existed. Damn it. Lin Yuan was shocked. Although the ancient existences on the Tianwu continent did not appear, it did not mean that they did not exist. Just like the system said, there might not be many true dragons in the dragon palace of the 4 seas. There might not be many of them, and there might not be any of them at all. Lin Yuan did not doubt that ever since he used the ancient demon court as a banner, some of the ancient powers had already seen him as a thorn in their side. On the other side, Yang Xingqi, who had passed through the door of the secret realm, broke a giant worm that was almost 300 meters long with his halberd. His gaze fell on the broken walls around him, and a look of contemplation appeared in his eyes. This damned place. Why was it randomly teleported? Without a map of this secret realm, there was nothing that could lead the way. Yang Xingqi was like a blind man crossing a river in this secret realm. He had no idea what to do next, or where he should go. Roar, roar, roar. Beast roars could be heard one after another. Yang Xingqi raised his halberd impatiently, his eyes filled with coldness. The demon beasts in this underwater secret realm were like maggots. Even if he slaughtered a large number of them, there would still be a beast king that would gather more demon beasts to kill him. Even if it was useless every time, these demon beasts still wouldn't stop. In less than a day, the good impression that Yang Xingqi had for these demon beasts was quickly worn away. Right now, he only wanted to find that black snake as soon as possible. After confirming what he wanted to confirm, he would immediately leave this damned place and do what he needed to do. He did not want to waste time here with a group of beasts. Suddenly, Yang Xingqi's eyebrows twitched. Yang Xingqi's figure flashed and disappeared from where he was standing, leaving a long trench in the water. In an instant, he appeared in front of the group of demonic beasts that had gathered. In just one move, he knocked the leading demonic beast king to the ground. Without waiting for the other party to struggle, Yang Xingqi stepped on the demonic beast king's head. Under the terrifying difference in strength, the demonic beast king instantly gave up struggling and obediently closed its eyes to await its death. However, the death that it imagined did not come. The beast king opened its eyes and looked at the powerful human in confusion. A while ago, a large group of humans and a black snake entered this place. If you can find me, you can definitely find them. Tell me, where are they? Yang Xingqi had a kind smile on his face, even revealing 2 rows of white teeth. The demonic beasts in the secret territory were all like radars. No matter where he hid, those demonic beasts would quickly find him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hated these guys so much. They were all like psoriasis that he couldn't get rid of. Tell me, where are they, and I will let you go, understand? Yang Xingqi tried his best to resist the urge to stomp the beast king to death and continued to speak with a kind tone. Even the weakest demon beast in the secret realm had the cultivation of the wisdom state. Therefore, Yang Xingqi was sure that these demon beasts had the ability to communicate. If they were just a group of guys who only knew how to kill, they would not have gathered such a large group of demon beasts to hunt him down. Moreover, after he controlled the beast king, those demon beasts would not be stunned in place, afraid that they would provoke him and cause him to kill the beast king. After a moment of silence, the beast king pointed in a direction and said, "The outsiders you mentioned were in the silver-scaled fish's territory some time ago. We have strict rules here. I can't enter the silver-scaled fish's territory, so you can only go there yourself. Even if they aren't there, you can still get some information from the silver-scaled fish." Silver-scaled fish. Looking in the direction the beast king pointed, Yang Xingqi nodded. Then, he stomped his foot heavily, sending the beast king who was willing to cooperate with him to the underworld. Yang Xingqi waved his halberd, stirring up a large amount of water currents. His gaze fell on the demon beasts who were enraged by the death of the beast king. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said in a cold voice, "A bunch of trash, you can obviously communicate with me, but all of you shut up and chased after me. You really think I have a good temper?" Now, the hunter and the prey have switched places. Previously, Yang Xingqi had thought of using his cultivation base to quickly patrol around this secret realm. However, Yang Xingqi could faintly sense a dangerous aura coming from several directions. Hence, he had to move very slowly. Along the way, he had slaughtered 2 to 3 demonic beasts. Only then did he meet a fellow who was willing to communicate with him. Now that he had obtained the information he wanted, those demonic beasts who had been chasing after him for a period of time would naturally have to suffer his revenge. The halberd danced, and the water currents surged. Countless demon beasts were torn to pieces under Yang Xingqi's slaughter, and a large amount of blood mist spread out. 10 minutes later, Yang Xingqi finished off the last secret realm demon beast with his halberd. Only then did he stop his slaughter. Standing on the spot, he took 2 deep breaths, and the redness on his face faded a little. He sighed and said, "Looks like I am really getting old. Such a small amount of exercise, even if I were 20 years younger, it would not even be considered a warm-up. Now, I am actually starting to pant. If there are more, I will continue to add more chapters." Now that there are no more chapters, the author is trying his best to write. Chapter 350. 3 days had passed since Lin Yuan recovered from his weakened state. In these 3 days, there were cultivators standing at the edge of this water area every day, looking at Lin Yuan from afar. These people had already offended Lin Yuan. Naturally, they didn't want Lin Yuan to leave this secret realm alive. So every day, they hoped that Lin Yuan would leave this dangerous water area as soon as possible. Even if he didn't want to enter a place that had been explored, he should at least enter another unexplored water area, right? Without that monster as a foreign aid, Although Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang weren't easy to deal with, they weren't put in the eyes of the 4 Heaven Dipper realm experts. Even if there was a certain gap in strength between the two sides, they always had a certain advantage when fighting 4 against 2. It's almost time to end it. A cold light flashed in Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang, who were meditating, were shocked. Their eyes fell on Lin Yuan at the same time. They didn't have a good time during this period. In order to explore the secret realm, they prepared enough materials. However, Lin Yuan also explained the situation to them later, so they knew what the monster was. Things like becoming a demon were not rare in the Tianwu continent. It was impossible for existences like Shui Yang and Chen Guanshan to not have seen the purgatory beasts. Even if they didn't encounter it, once a purgatory beasts appeared in the nearby area, they would be recruited as a fighting force to participate in the battle. So in their eyes, that monster was an existence that was about to become a purgatory beasts and was still struggling. They were worried these 2 days that the monster couldn't keep its mind and directly became a purgatory beasts. Then, it would directly lose its mind and attack them. Originally, the monster's strength was already above them. Once it became a purgatory beasts, its strength would increase by leaps and bounds. At that time, if they joined forces to fight against it, they might end up being killed in an instant. Now that Lin Yuan looked like he had recovered, Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang suddenly became excited. If they continued to stay in this damned place, they might drive themselves crazy first. Carry me to that water area. Lin Yuan and the 2 of them looked at each other and exhorted softly. At this time, if Lin Yuan continued to go deeper into the waters, the pursuers would certainly not dare to follow him. Moreover, Lin Yuan did not have the courage to explore deeper. This time, he encountered a black tortoise that had turned into a demon. There was also a Sarira here to restrain it and prevent it from completely losing its mind. Therefore, this was Lin Yuan's luck. However, something like luck could be used, but one could never rely on it. This was because no one knew if good luck would favor them next time. However, if Lin Yuan were to return to the waters they had explored, there was no way those cultivators wouldn't have guessed that Lin Yuan had already recovered, given how astute those cultivators were. Even though it took half a month for Lin Yuan to recover among the dragon-blooded monsters they had captured in the past, they would still choose to send some airborne realm cultivators to test Lin Yuan out of safety concerns. They might not even show their faces. However, if Shui Yang and Chen Guanshan were to carry Lin Yuan to another unexplored water area, they might still not be able to avoid being tested by the monsters. However, it was certain that all 4 heavenly strength realm cultivators would show up. After all, monsters were very sensitive to their own territories. Lin Yuan had used the language of Earth to communicate with the monster and the Sarira. Naturally, they did not know the specific content. However, judging from Lin Yuan's behavior for the past 2 days, they guessed that the terrifying monster did not intend to let Lin Yuan set foot in its territory. Therefore, at this time, it was completely reasonable for Lin Yuan to take the risk to go through other unknown water areas and then achieve his goal of staying away from them. Okay. Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang looked at each other and both of them became alert. As usual, one of them lifted Lin Yuan and the other carried him by his tail and strode to another unknown water area. In fact, it could not be said that it was unknown. After Lin Yuan's Eye of God passive effect was activated, he could directly see the situation in that water area. After all, not all monsters had the ability like the black tortoise and the Sarira, who could use their own aura to block the exploration of the Eye of God. Therefore, Lin Yuan was sure that the unexplored water area next door was a dead land. Other than the remains of some monsters, Lin Yuan did not see any life at all. Obviously, it had been abandoned for a long time. However, these sects and forces only wanted to get the treasures in the central palace and did not want to continue to explore this secret realm. After all, they had not eaten the things in front of them. How could they be in the mood to pile up a more detailed map with their lives? As soon as Lin Yuan moved, the cultivators, who had been eager for a long time, also began to move. In order to hunt down Lin Yuan, they now only had 4 Heavenly Dipper realm cultivators and 21 airborne realm cultivators left. Compared to the hundreds of people when they first entered the secret realm, it could be said that it was very bleak. However, this also made them more determined to kill Lin Yuan here. Otherwise, once Lin Yuan left the secret realm, their losses would be more than what they had now. This was especially true for the major sects and forces. The conflict between the two sides was already on the verge of erupting. It was only because the two sides restrained their temper that they did not directly fight. This time, after falling out with each other, Lin Yuan would make a move on these sects and forces as soon as he left the secret realm. A group of 25 people quickly followed Lin Yuan's group into the new unknown water area. Most of them already had a certain understanding of the rules of this place. Different groups were divided into different territories. Unless it was time to hunt, these monsters would not take half a step out of the minefield. The noon hunting time had just passed. Even if the monster wanted to continue to help Lin Yuan, it would not step out of its own territory. Black Snake, this time, you're dead. The Heavenly Dipper realm cultivator who had been shouting at Lin Yuan before secretly clenched his fists. A gloomy look flashed in his eyes. He felt that he had been humiliated in front of Lin Yuan several times in a row. This made him, who came from a superclass sect, resentful of Lin Yuan in his heart. After all, it could be said that he was almost surrounded by thousands of people since he was a child. Even some of the young masters of the big families had to smile and talk to him submissively when they saw him. However, this Black Snake had humiliated him several times in a row, which was tantamount to giving him several loud slaps in the face. Chapter 351. After entering this desolate water area, the group of cultivators trembled in fear. After all, the scene of the monster slaughtering everyone 2 days ago was still vivid in their minds. Now that they had stepped into an unfamiliar water area again, even if everyone present had decent combat strength, they were on high alert at this moment, afraid that another monster would suddenly jump out from the side. However, after walking for 700 to 800 meters, other than the traces left by Lin Yuan and his group on the white sand, they didn't see any traces of living creatures at all. They only saw pieces of decaying beast bones from time to time, as if there had been no life here for a long time. After a moment, someone suddenly exclaimed, "Black Snake." Only then did everyone recover from their alert state, and they all cast their gazes forward. At this moment, Lin Yuan didn't have the slightest weak posture of being carried by people at all. Instead, he was coiled up and coldly sizing up a group of cultivators with strong fighting spirit. Chen Guanshan crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood on the left side of Lin Yuan. Threads that couldn't be seen by the naked eye were floating around Chen Guanshan, while on the right side of Lin Yuan, there was a cold expression on his face. After taking off his shirt, he revealed the iron rings that covered his arms. Thump! The 4 Heaven Dipper realm powerhouses walking at the front were shocked at the same time, and they all looked at Lin Yuan with horror in their eyes. This Black Snake has actually recovered. Thinking back to the day when Lin Yuan instantly killed a Heaven Dipper realm powerhouse who was on the same level as them, these 4 people's faces were filled with horror at the same time. However, soon, a Heaven Dipper realm powerhouse regained his composure and sneered, "It's only been 2 days. Even if this Black Snake can really recover from its weakened state, can it still perfectly control its own power? It's deliberately mystifying to scare us away." Oh! Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule. In the next moment, a ferocious water dragon had condensed beside Lin Yuan. Seeing that Lin Yuan could really mobilize his own power, the 4 Heaven Dipper realm cultivators were shocked again. The scene of Lin Yuan instantly killing a Heaven Dipper realm cultivator was still vivid in their minds. They didn't want to be the unlucky ones. The mockery in Lin Yuan's eyes turned into a sneer as he said with a dark face, "What? This king was able to transform into a flood dragon thanks to the opportunity that you guys found for him. Now that this king has recovered to his peak state, don't you guys want to come and see how good this king is?" A Heaven Dipper realm expert's eyes burned with fighting spirit as he growled, "Everyone, things have come to this point. Even if we are willing to take a step back, this Black Snake will never let us go. We can't escape death anyway. Let's fight." It was as if the surrounding water had received an order from a king. They turned into water swords and rushed towards Lin Yuan. Just this. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with ridicule. In the next moment, the Water King launched those swords, but they collapsed before they could get close to Lin Yuan. As a water-type monster, Lin Yuan could see at a glance that the other party's method was just a feint. It condensed some water to attack the enemy in an instant. There was no need to guide and control at all. Therefore, even if there was a certain gap between the two sides, Lin Yuan could only temporarily affect the opponent's ability to control water, but Lin Yuan could make it collapse directly. This, the Heaven Dipper realm expert who controlled water, changed his face. He knew that Lin Yuan was a water-type monster, but he didn't expect Lin Yuan's ability to control water to be so strong that his probing attack instantly turned into nothingness. If it was just this, he didn't intend to rely on these methods to test the opponent's strength. However, the moment Lin Yuan made his move, he suddenly felt that the surrounding water spirit power was directly disconnected from him. What kind of absurd thing is this? He, a Heaven Dipper realm water cultivator, actually lost the ability to control water under the water. This black snake is different. I, the Heaven Dipper realm expert who controlled water, just opened his mouth. Another Heaven Dipper realm expert narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a deep voice, "It seems that our Black Water Dragon King has awakened an incredible ability after transforming into a flood dragon. But it doesn't matter, its ability can't be effective forever. You step aside for the time being, I will deal with this black snake." As his voice fell, the Heaven Dipper realm expert's body crackled and thunder surged continuously. His whole person looked like he was wearing a purple battle suit. Thunder-type cultivator. The expression on Xueyang's face changed slightly. There were many schools of thought among cultivators. Among them, the 5 elements were the most common. In a place like the Northern Territory, cultivators of the water, wood, and earth elements were more common. After all, the cultivation speed of cultivators in different environments would also be different. But aside from the common 5 elements, there were also some rare special elements. For example, the lightning element was known as the element with the most powerful and violent attacks among the special element. There was a rumor in the northern frontier that the first-rate sect, the Flying Sun Pavilion, had a thunder technique that was passed down from ancient times. Those who weren't talented couldn't cultivate it. But rumors were just rumors. Although the Flying Sun Pavilion didn't refute the rumor, they understood the principle of a tall tree attracting the wind. So, the Flying Sun Pavilion had never revealed any traces of thunder technique. It was only until now that the Heaven Dipper realm expert from the Flying Sun Pavilion revealed his thunder technique. In the blink of an eye, the Heaven Dipper realm expert from the Flying Sun Pavilion had already rushed over. His fists were wrapped in lightning as he went straight for Lin Yuan's face. The surging electric current hit his face, and even Lin Yuan felt suffocated. Tut! Another Heaven Dipper realm cultivator growled. A milky white sound wave actually appeared and went straight for Lin Yuan's back. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yuan fell into a situation where he was attacked from the front and back after defeating the Heaven Dipper realm expert who could control water. Chen Guanshan and Xueyang's expressions changed slightly. They moved almost at the same time, wanting to block one side for Lin Yuan. However, the airborne realm cultivators around them also moved quickly and surrounded the two. The Heaven Dipper realm expert who could control water was right. Things had already come to this point. Even if they were willing to let Lin Yuan go now, once Lin Yuan left this secret realm, he wouldn't let them and the forces behind them go. Therefore, from the moment they decided to stand in a team, only one side could survive between them and Lin Yuan. Therefore, there was no reason for them to retreat now that they had started fighting. Even if they didn't have the guts to fight Lin Yuan, they wouldn't let Chen Guanshan and Xueyang interfere in the matter of 4 Heaven Dipper realm experts surrounding Lin Yuan. Keep moving forward if you don't want to die. Chen Guanshan's eyes were red. He didn't hold back at all with the scimitar in his hand, which was his trump card. He directly plunged it into the crowd and instantly killed 8 late-stage airborne realm cultivators. Chapter 352. Seeing how Chen Guanshan looked like a madman, the airborne realm cultivators who rushed up looked at each other. For a moment, they were actually intimidated by Chen Guanshan's aura. However, they did not directly rush up. These airborne realm cultivators still surrounded Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang. They knew very well that while Chen Guanshan's scimitar was terrifying, he was only able to use it twice when he was at his peak. After that, Chen Guanshan's aura would become unstable. Even if he still had the strength to fight with them, he would not be able to kill them all in an instant. Kill. Chen Guanshan's attack did not scare off those airborne realm cultivators, but Shui Yang quickly growled and took the initiative to rush forward. Both of his hands abruptly lashed out at the same time. It took only an instant for 6 airborne realm cultivators to be sent flying by Shui Yang's terrifying strength. 2 of them were even crushed into meat paste on the spot. Both of them did not hold back at all. They even used their trump cards as soon as they came up. Even if they were to face a group of cultivators who were half a step into the Heavenly Dipper realm, they were confident that they could kill or severely injure the other party. Shui Yang, you are also a member of a clan in the northern frontier. Do you think that this black snake is now attacking our sects and forces, and when it defeats us later, you people of the clans and families will end up well? Yes, this black snake is very ambitious. Although it is treating the clans well now, the black snake obviously wants it to be the only voice in the northern frontier. When our sects and forces are suppressed, you people of the clans and families will definitely not be able to get any benefits. Lord Shui, you are a member of the northern frontier, so I hope that you will stand on our side. When this black snake was not around, everyone was doing well. Although I do not deny that the appearance of the black snake has indeed made the northern frontier prosperous, don't be fooled by appearances. The black snake is just trying to divide us and defeat the sects and clans one by one. Voices of persuasion were heard. While those airborne realm cultivators were no match for Shui Yang and Chen Guanshan, they had nowhere else to run. If Chen Guanshan, who was suspected to be the Shuangjian barbarian, was the only one present, they would have been able to hold their own for a bit. However, as soon as Shui Yang, who was the successor of the Ma army, got involved in the battle, the scales of victory would have tipped right away. Even if all of them were to die, they would have only been able to delay those 2 for a bit. No one wanted to die. If they wanted to die, they wouldn't have participated in this incident. At first, they only thought that exploring the secret territory was a good opportunity to improve themselves. However, no one thought that this matter was set up by some people from the beginning to the end. They also didn't expect that the battle between Lin Yuan and the sects would directly break out in the secret territory. They didn't even have the chance to choose. They were forced to stand on the side of the sects and become enemies with Lin Yuan. Now, it was too late to regret. Master Shui, I've heard a lot about you. I've long wanted to meet you, a piece of trash. The Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse who could control water entered with a strong force. His eyes fell on Shui Yang's face without restraint. He sneered and said, as a level 4 Heavenly Dipper realm cultivator, you can't even support a small family. So, it shouldn't be a problem for me to call you trash, right? Shui Yang glanced coldly at the Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse who could control water and said expressionlessly, Li Chang, I still remember the scene when you knelt at the door of my Shui family and begged me to give you a meal. You're just a villain who got what he wanted. Li Chang snorted coldly and stepped forward. He pulled out the sword at his waist with a backhand. The cold blade was raised and directly slashed at Shui Yang's face. Shui Yang didn't dodge. He directly raised his arms to affect the other party. For a moment, the shadows of the sword and the fist almost shrouded the 2 figures. It was almost impossible to tell who was leading the attack. Chen Guanshan gently exhaled. When his eyes fell on the other Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse who didn't participate in the siege of Lin Yuan, he put his right hand on his chest and made a strange bow. He said in a deep voice, Senior Shu, Chen Guanshan, the Jinx, pays his respect. Hear he, well said, well said. Senior Shu was an old man who was missing his front teeth. His skin looked drier and more wrinkled than the bark of a tree. There was no sword hanging at his waist, but a golden pipe. If he wasn't famous in the northern frontier and was once known as a poison master, ordinary people would only think of him as an old farmer who was obsessed with mulberry fields. Similarly, very few people knew that Senior Shu and Chen Guanshan came from the same sect. That organization, which was similar to the embroidered uniform guard, would cultivate a group of terrifying assassins almost every 10 years. For example, Chen Guanshan's sect was good at hidden weapons and controlling objects. Another sect that was equally famous specialized in the art of poison. They could take a person's life from thousands of miles away in a day. Senior Shu took the pipe from his waist and gently took a puff. With an intoxicated expression, he said, "It's not easy to master the 1,000 silk twists. In my generation, there were only 5 people who were able to master the 1,000 silk twists. For you to be able to master the 1,000 silk twists, you don't lack talent or fortune. It would be a pity if you died here." At this point, Senior Shu paused. He squinted his eyes and smiled. "Seeing that we are from the same sect, if you surrender now and help us deal with this black snake, I can spare your life. How about it?" Chen Guanshan didn't say anything. He just frowned with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Although they were from the same sect, he knew nothing about the poison cultivator's methods. He didn't even know what methods the poison cultivator would use to attack him. He was even worried that the poison cultivator had already poisoned him in the time it took for him to speak. What a pity, what a pity. Senior Shu put down the pipe in his hand and shook his head gently. A look of regret flashed across his face. However, after feeling regretful, Senior Shu suddenly opened his mouth. A mouthful of thick purple smoke came out of his mouth and instantly spread in the direction where Chen Guanshan was. Along the way, 2 airborne realm cultivators couldn't dodge in time and immediately knelt on the ground with their hands on their throats. In just 2 breaths, they died on the spot. There was a big difference between the half-step Celestial Star Border Realm and the Celestial Star Border Realm. Moreover, the few Celestial Star Border Realm cultivators who were making a move here were not the top of the Celestial Star Border Realm. Once they went all out, the so-called half-step Celestial Star Border Realm cultivators were no match for them. Chen Guanshan's eyes twitched. He tapped on the ground with the tip of his foot and suddenly retreated. He didn't want to see if that cloud of poisonous smoke could kill him like how it killed those airborne realm cultivators. Senior Shu was still smoking his pipe from time to time. It was as if he was not worried about Chen Guanshan being able to dodge his attack at all. He looked like he was just watching a show. Chapter 353. Black Snake, none of your helpers will be able to come, Lei Xiao said mockingly as he waved his fist at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan wasn't in a hurry to fight back. He just kept dodging under the opponent's stormy attacks. When he couldn't dodge anymore, he would control the water dragon behind him to block. It was as if he was firmly suppressed by the opponent's attacks. Even fighting back became a problem. Lei Xiao waved his fist and sneered, "I knew it. Black Snake, you haven't left the weak state at all. You're just pretending now. Do you think we can suffer the same loss twice? This time, if you fart." Before Lei Xiao finished his words, he lowered his head in disbelief and stared blankly at the dragon tail that pierced through his chest. "Let me teach you a lesson. You can use it in your next life." Lin Yuan, who succeeded in one hit, sneered and said in a deep voice, "In your next life, when your opponent keeps dodging your attacks, you have to be careful. Because the opponent may not be suppressed by you to the point that he can't fight back. Instead, he's constantly adapting to your attack rhythm. Once the time is right, your opponent will quickly reveal his fangs and finish you off." Lei Xiao wasn't a cultivator of the thwart cultivation method. He just relied on his speed and the protection of the thunder armor, so he was arrogant enough to fight Lin Yuan in close combat. However, with Lin Yuan's current attack power, he really didn't care about the defensive power of the thunder armor. It was just that if he attacked rashly, he would be blocked by Lei Xiao. Now that he was attacked from the front and back, Lin Yuan didn't have the intention to fight slowly with Lei Xiao. Instead, he had been looking for an opportunity to kill him in one blow. Just now, under the continuous attacks, Lei Xiao quietly took a breath, causing the storm-like attacks to be interrupted. This allowed Lin Yuan to seize the fleeting opportunity to directly erase his existence. At this time, The sound waves from the Heaven Dipper realm expert had already arrived behind Lin Yuan. Seeing the sudden death of the Thunder Cultivator, the Heaven Dipper realm powerhouse did not have much emotion on his face, as if everything was within his expectations. Seeing that Lin Yuan still did not dodge, there was even a sneer on his face. It seemed that Lin Yuan's behavior, in his opinion, was simply courting death. However, Lin Yuan didn't think so. First of all, Lin Yuan's defense was as high as 600 points. Coupled with the 65% damage reduction from the max-level Golden Body secret art, it was almost enough to make him immune to most of the damage. At the very least, damage that was enough to kill a Mountain Lord realm monster in the eyes of others would only cause light or serious injuries to Lin Yuan at most. Of course, if Lin Yuan were to take on a terrifying killing move like the Fire Kirin's Doomsday Meteor, he would still die on the spot. After all, that kind of damage had already exceeded the limit of what Lin Yuan could withstand. However, how could a mere Heaven Dipper Realm Level 3 cultivator compare to the means used by a desolate Demon Realm expert? The milky white sound waves landed heavily on Lin Yuan's body. Lin Yuan staggered from the impact, and some of the scales on his body instantly shattered. However, this degree of injury was nothing to Lin Yuan. After experiencing the pain of his physical body transforming into a flood dragon, this sound wave wasn't even qualified to make Lin Yuan feel pain. That's it. Lin Yuan turned around and tilted his head at the Heaven Dipper realm expert who roared out the sound wave. A hint of mockery flashed in his heterochromatic eyes. This Heaven Dipper realm expert clearly didn't expect Lin Yuan to not die on the spot after taking on his strongest move head-on. If that was all, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, Lin Yuan was now a terrifying existence that could instantly kill a Heaven Dipper Realm Level 2 cultivator. Putting aside his attack power, his ridiculous defense power was nothing much. However, now that this scene appeared before his eyes, this Heaven Dipper Realm expert only wanted to curse. How was this F*King ridiculous? This was F*King fantasy. His strongest move landed squarely on Lin Yuan's body, but Lin Yuan didn't seem to feel it at all. It was as if his full-strength punch had directly hit cotton. Subconsciously, this Heaven Dipper realm cultivator wanted to escape. Although he was a disciple of a sect, the sect behind him was different. The sect behind him had a Void Realm expert. If Black Snake wanted to touch the sect behind him, he would have to consider whether he had the ability to do so. However, the moment this Heaven Dipper realm expert turned around, he suddenly saw a clear and transparent water dragon looking down at him. Although that ferocious face was made of water, it still brought a deep sense of fear to this Heaven Dipper realm expert. Black Snake, my master is Master Qing Ming. He's one of the few Void Realm experts in the northern frontier. If you kill me, my master will never let you go. Most people would panic when they encountered danger, but there were also some people who would become calmer and even think of solutions that they couldn't normally think of. This Heaven Dipper realm expert was clearly this kind of person. He was very clear that his relationship with Black Snake had reached a point where only one of them would die. As the person who took the lead in scheming against Black Snake, even if Black Snake let everyone go, it wouldn't let him go. Therefore, he knew that begging for mercy wouldn't have any effect. Master Qing Ming. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Although he didn't make any movements, the image of the angry dragon that could instantly kill the powerhouse of the Kongming realm stopped in an instant. It just maintained the posture of staring at the powerhouse of the Heavenly Dipper realm. Black Snake, although I don't want to admit it, you are a powerful person. Therefore, you should know that there are no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal benefits. I can join hands with these people to harm you for the spiritual item in the Central Palace. Then, I can become your staunch ally for other benefit. This matter is my fault, and I admit it. As long as you state a price, I will definitely not frown. Perhaps we will have a chance to cooperate in the future. Seeing that Lin Yuan was really intimidated by Master Qing Ming's name, the Heaven Dipper realm expert immediately added with a smile. His expression gradually relaxed. Lin Yuan was secretly thinking, although the existence of the Kongming realm and the desolate demon realm or above, according to the unspoken rules of the Qianwu continent, they are not allowed to intervene in the war without the strength of the same level. On Lin Yuan's side, whether it is the Northern Region Lord's Mansion or the Blackwater Dragon Palace, there is no existence that can compete with the Kongming realm, so he can use this rule to protect himself. However, there was always a limit to everything. In the face of life and death, these people didn't care about rules. Chapter 354. Speaking of which, this unspoken rule was applicable during peacetime. Now that the Shunwu dynasty was so chaotic and the northern frontier had fallen into Lin Yuan's hands, who knew how many people were eyeing Lin Yuan's terrifying benefits? If Lin Yuan forced these cultivators into a corner, he would definitely not have a good ending. It was even possible that he would be directly killed by a Void Realm cultivator. For these sects with Kongming realm in charge, Lin Yuan's initial intention was not to uproot them, but to expel this level of sects from the northern region. He was not arrogant enough to think that he was invincible, so after the Heavenly Dipper realm powerhouse mentioned his master, Lin Yuan seemed a little hesitant. There were ways to expel them. For the current Lin Yuan, the best way to expel these sects with Void Realm cultivators was to deal with them coldly. After all, the matter of weakening the sects and clans had already been decided. These benefits snatched from the mouths of these clans and sects would ultimately become the benefits of the Northern Frontier Academy. When these sects and clans felt that they had no benefits in the Northern Frontier and would grow weaker day by day, even unable to recruit disciples, they would naturally move to other places to take root. It's just a fake Daoist. Can his name be used to scare people? In the distance, a middle-aged man in silver armor strode over. His majestic gait and the bloody aura radiating from his body immediately caused Lin Yuan's pupils to contract. Shock appeared in his eyes. Insulting my master, I think you're courting death. The Heaven Dipper realm powerhouse had just used his master to suppress Lin Yuan, and now was the time when he was at his most inflated. He just heard the voice behind him, and did not look back to see who was talking behind him. He directly opened his mouth and roared. But soon, he saw traces of ridicule in Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes. It seemed that his words were not appropriate, but he could not think of any problem with his words. After all, Master Qing Ming was one of the few Void Realm cultivators on the northern frontier. Even Hu Yang and the others in the past had to respectfully greet his master when they saw him. The person who spoke, thinking of this, the strong man of Heavengang realm slowly turned around and saw the figure in silver armor. His pupils shrank to the size of a needle and he exclaimed, "Yang! Yang!" There weren't many Kongming realm cultivators in the northern frontier, but strictly speaking, there were still a few of them. Among them, the guardian of the northern frontier, Yang Xingqi was the strongest, followed by Freedom Courtyard's Master Kuwen. Then there were Master Qing Ming, Old Demon Bloodsea, and Fairy Qinse. These three experts each oversaw a region. Below them were some Tom, Dick, and Harry. They were a bunch of old farts who were stuck at the peak of the Heaven Dipper realm. They relied on their low cultivation to compete with those weaker than them. Any sect that didn't have a Kongming realm cultivator would be bullied by these old farts. However, when they saw the existence of these 5 Heaven Dipper realm cultivators, they all behaved like obedient dogs. He was now admiring his own courage. After all, in the entire northern frontier, the number of people who dared to say that Yang Xingqi was courting death could be counted with one's fingers. Even if his master was here personally, he might not have the guts to shout at Yang Xingqi. Right now, he felt like his head was buzzing and his mind was completely blank. Yang Xingqi strode in front of Heishi and directly passed by this Heaven Realm cultivator. He crossed his arms and looked at Heishi with a scrutinizing gaze. He said in a deep voice, "Heishi, I'm very curious. What are you trying to do by making such a big commotion in the northern region?" After being questioned by Yang Xingqi, Lin Yuan was stunned. He had thought that Yang Xingqi could be the reinforcements that Lei Fan had invited. He had also thought that Yang Xingqi was planning to take advantage of this opportunity to kill him, the demonic beast that was causing trouble in the northern frontier, and use this opportunity to liberate the northern frontier and bring the northern frontier back under the control of mankind. However, he had never thought that Yang Xingqi would actually ask him about his plans for the future with such a serious face. These aristocratic families and sects in the northern frontier are like leeches that cling onto the northern frontier. Every year, they siphon off huge amounts of benefits from the northern frontier. Every time they consume resources, it is the blood and sweat of countless citizens of the northern frontier. I don't care about the past, but now that the northern frontier is under my rule, it is impossible for them to continue doing such things. Furthermore, these aristocratic families and sects have exploited the citizens of the northern frontier for so many years. Now that I am making them bleed, and it is also beneficial to the northern frontier, this isn't too much, right? Lin Yuan raised his eyelids and said in a low voice. Yang Xingqi pondered for a moment, then laughed lightly and said, "What if they are not willing?" Although Yang Xingqi was the guardian of the northern frontier, he did not have a wife or children, and did not have any family ties. Therefore, he was not within Lin Yuan's scope of attack. However, he was very interested in Lin Yuan's way of thinking. After all, even a powerful sovereign king like Lei Qiusheng would not dare to offend the aristocratic families and sects. Since ancient times, there had been many sovereigns who had died in strange ways, almost all because they had interfered with the interests of the aristocratic families and sects. Since ancient times, it had always been the aristocratic families and sects that stepped on the heads of the citizens, sucking the blood of the citizens, and forcing the citizens to worship them as gods. They would be proud if their children could become disciples of the sects or become members of the aristocratic families. While they were envious of the aristocratic families and sects for having such rich resources, they never seemed to realize that such a huge amount of wealth had actually flowed out from their hands. Of course, they could not be biased. The existence of the aristocratic families and sects was not completely a disadvantage. When faced with evil forces like the demonic beasts and heretic cultivators, there were many places where the local government could not take care of everything. Basically, it was the local aristocratic families and sects that protected the citizens. Therefore, there was no need to fight against the smaller aristocratic families and sects. However, if it was the larger aristocratic families and sects, it would be a headache for the 7 dynasties, as it was hard to say if they could win or not. However, in the northern frontier, Lin Yuan did not need to worry about this problem. Firstly, there were the demonic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range. Although they did not have a good relationship with Lin Yuan, they would receive a large amount of spiritual items from Lin Yuan every month as dividends. It was not a problem for them to restrain their subordinates and not disturb the citizens. In addition, the plans for the Northern Frontiers census and identity verification were already on the right track. Apart from the spies that the major forces had scattered in the Northern Frontier, Lin Yuan could guarantee that in the future, even the secret agents of the 7 dynasties would not be able to move freely in the Northern Frontier, let alone heretic cultivator. In such an environment, the benefits of the aristocratic families and sects were next to nothing. They would even drag down the Northern Frontier Academy that Lin Yuan had established. It was even to the extent that both sides wanted to strangle each other to ensure that their interests would not be shaken. This was the real reason why both sides had shed all pretense of cordiality. Chapter 355. I will definitely eradicate the forces of the sects. With the existence of the academy, the people of the northern region will no longer need to pay such a huge price to cultivate. After taking away the students, the major sects will definitely be short of manpower. Therefore, before we have a falling out, I have to directly destroy the sects of the northern region. Otherwise, they might not dare to take revenge on me. However, it will be too easy for me to make a move on the instructors and students of the academy to intimidate the commoners who want to enter the academy. As for the aristocratic families, I will set new rules for them. Of course, while depriving them of some privileges, I will ensure that they can earn enough to support their families. However, after I take over the northern frontier, I do not wish for the orders of the Northern Frontier Prince's mansion to remain unissued. I also do not wish for there to be any dissenting voices in the northern frontier. If there is a problem with my way of thinking, we can discuss and solve it. I have no objections. However, if there is a voice that exists purely to oppose me or to obtain privileges for some people, I only have one attitude: kill. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and said slowly, Yang Xingqi, no matter what you think, what I want to say is that a new era has begun in the northern frontier. Even if I fail, there will be a day when someone will succeed me. Anyone who opposes the era will only end up being crushed by the current of the era. When Yang Xingqi first appeared here, Lin Yuan did not know what Yang Xingqi wanted to do. However, when Yang Xingqi saw him, the first thing he asked was what he wanted to do. With such a straightforward way of speaking, if Lin Yuan could not guess what Yang Xingqi was thinking, then he deserved to die here today. Even though Lin Yuan spoke with an indifferent attitude, his heart was filled with eagerness. After all, having a Void Nether Realm expert in the northern frontier was completely different from having a group of desolate demon realm monsters supporting Lin Yuan in the Hengduan Mountains. If Lin Yuan suddenly died in the northern frontier, the demonic beasts of the Hengduan mountain range would at most organize a beast tide to take revenge on these humans. However, if both sides really went to war, even if the other 6 dynasties were willing to see the Shunwu dynasty fall, they would not be willing to see the Shunwu dynasty's territory be occupied by the demonic beasts. At that time, the 7 dynasties might even join forces to attack the Hengduan mountain range. Therefore, although the demonic beast's strength seemed powerful, they were indeed unreliable. But if Lin Yuan had a Void Realm cultivator behind him, that would be a different story. Especially when the one supporting Lin Yuan was Yang Xingqi, the publicly acknowledged strongest cultivator in the northern frontier. If Yang Xingqi wanted to take revenge on a certain faction, that faction might not be able to withstand it. Yang Xingqi stroked his chin and smiled. Interesting. I'm suddenly interested in the new era that you mentioned. How about it, Blackwater Dragon King? Do you want to bring me to see what the new era looks like? When Yang Xingqi's voice fell, the faces of most of the people present turned gloomy. Today, Lin Yuan had used his actions to prove that he could kill a Heaven Star Border Realm Level 4 cultivator like killing a dog. If he joined forces with Yang Xingqi, the sects in the northern frontier would definitely be wiped out and expelled if they did not quickly unite. Most importantly, they did not even know if they could make it out of the secret realm alive. It was impossible for them to spread this important news to their respective sects. Shui Yang's face was gloomy at first, but he quickly adjusted his state of mind. This was because Lin Yuan said that he would set new rules for the aristocratic families instead of uprooting the aristocratic families. He would also ensure that the aristocratic families would gain enough benefits from the new rules. In addition, Lin Yuan's promise to him was like a tranquilizer. Invisibly, a murderous aura spread out in the air. Other than Shui Yang and Chen Guanshan, everyone present had a look of despair. At the same time, Lei Qiusheng, who was standing by the shore, squinted his eyes and said in a deep voice, "It's about time. The 1st and 2nd battalions will stay behind to keep watch. Once there are any cultivators coming out of the secret realm or approaching from other areas, take them down immediately. The rest of you, follow me." Luo Shu, who was wrapped in bandages, was slightly taken aback. His eyes revealed a look of confusion as he asked, "Isn't it too early to make a move on the sects? Are you so sure that the Black Snake will reach an agreement with Yang Xingqi? Aren't you afraid that Yang Xingqi will kill the Black Snake and help the sects in the northern frontier to wipe us out? If the Black Snake can't even deal with Yang Xingqi, the Demon Emperor Association would have changed hands long ago." Lei Fan's lips curled up as he laughed coldly and continued, "Furthermore, attack us? Yang Xingqi has stayed in the northern frontier for so many years and he can't bear to see the northern frontier in a bad state. Our existence has brought changes to the northern frontier and that is why Yang Xingqi has appeared here. Don't be fooled by his cold face. In his heart, he hopes that we will continue to exist and carry out the orders in his hands." Speaking up to this point, Lei Fan paused for a moment and the smile on his face deepened. "Besides, what right does he have to wipe us out? The northern frontier has more than 600,000 guards. Others may not know what we are doing, but do you think they don't know? Even if it's not for the northern frontier, for themselves, they will stand firmly on our side. No matter how strong Yang Xingqi is, can he kill 600,000 people? But the sects," Luo Shu opened his mouth again, a look of worry flashing past his eyes. As someone who had spent most of his life in the northern frontier, he was very clear about the morals and power of the sects in the northern frontier. So on the matter of falling out with the sects in the northern frontier, Luo Shu had always maintained a conservative attitude. The past is the past, and the present is the present. In the past, if we were to collapse, the Shunwu dynasty would immediately send a new team to take over the northern frontier. But after seeing the huge profits of the northern frontier, everyone in the Shunwu dynasty, including that man, wants to take over the northern frontier. Coupled with the tense situation in various places, the Shunwu dynasty is unable to gather enough people. If the Shunwu dynasty is unable to gather enough people, the sects and families in the northern frontier will have their own ideas. By then, the northern frontier will turn from the prosperous scene it is today into a state of seclusion and war between the various powers. Do you think the Shunwu dynasty is willing to see such a scene? Is Yang Xingqi willing to see such a scene? Don't tell me, what happened to Ma Jun that year, will happen again? The smile on Lei Fan's face grew wider and wider, to the point that his smile was somewhat sinister as he said coldly, "Once I fall, the northern frontier will immediately descend into chaos. Even if Yang Xingqi has taken care of the Black Snake, he will still stand on our side. If we follow the Black Snake's plan, we will be the winners." Chapter 356. After receiving the order from the lake in the mystic realm, Hu Yang and the others changed into their armors and began to mobilize the various forces scattered around the northern frontier, such as the Guardian Corps and the Council of the Demon Emperor. After defeating Xiong Wujuan last time, the guards of the northern region had not been used for a long time. First, it was because Lin Yuan had brought a strong economic support to the northern region. Almost everyone intended to take advantage of this opportunity to make a good profit. Not many people intended to cause trouble at this time. Second, it was because the structure of the northern region seemed to be stable, but in fact, the secret agents of the sects, aristocratic families, and even the major dynasties were lurking in the northern region, waiting for Lin Yuan to make a mistake. Therefore, all parties were secretly wrestling, but no one would put the struggle on the surface. Today, this legendary army that defeated 5 times their number with 600,000 people once again showed its fangs. In just 4 hours, a third of the hundreds of sects in the northern frontier had been wiped out. At first, the Northern Frontier Guardian Corps still used the excuse of assisting in the investigation. However, after encountering the sect's disciples several times, the officers at the bottom were no longer willing to bet the lives of their subordinates on whether the other party would surrender or not. All the sects and forces that were listed on the elimination list were directly killed without even a chance to talk. At first, there were still some sects and forces that were strong enough that even the Northern Frontier Guardian Corps could not do anything to them. However, their resistance was useless. If they were targeted by a certain dynasty or a stronger force, perhaps they would have gritted their teeth and let this tough bone go. However, this was the Northern Frontier, and their enemy was the Beast King who controlled the northern frontier and was even conferred as a god by the Shunwu dynasty. Those sects and forces that defeated the Northern Frontier Guardian Corps did not even have time to catch their breath before they heard a series of thunderous footsteps. Those were the footsteps of a beast tide that could shake the earth and mountains when the number of beasts reached a certain scale. The sects and forces that hadn't been attacked by the Northern Frontier Guard Corps were also on tenterhooks. Most of them didn't even know what was going on. They were all trembling and began to send the old, weak, women, and children to the escape routes that they had prepared in advance. If Lin Yuan was in charge of this operation, Lin Yuan would have just raised his hand and let these old, weak, women, and children go. As for nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity, he couldn't wait for a strong enemy to come and give him attribute points. Even if the enemy was a genius, they would have to obediently kneel down and submit to him. In terms of growth speed alone, Lin Yuan didn't believe that there was a creature in this world that could be faster than him. If there was, then it should also be a cheat-like existence. However, the one who was in charge of the cleanup operation this time was not Lin Yuan, but the one who had been lying low in the Northern Frontier Duke's palace all this while. Other than having the title of Duke of the Northern Frontier, Lei Fan, whose real power was not even comparable to the other 6 city lord. Once a venomous snake coiled its body and launched an attack, even a hunter who had dealt with venomous snakes all year round would be caught off guard and bitten fiercely. The petty tricks of those sects did not escape the eyes of the Association of Demon Emperors at all. Therefore, before they reached a safe place, they were intercepted and killed by a group of cultivators in black capes and devil masks. Not to mention the young disciples who were regarded as the seeds of revival by the sects in the future. Even the real old, weak, women, and children could not win the slightest sympathy in front of the criminals and demi-humans of the Association of Demon Emperors. They were all killed without any hesitation. After the corpses were beheaded, they directly piled up in front of their respective sects' mountain gates, as if to announce that those who went against Lin Yuan would end up in such a miserable state. At the same time, in the Flying Sun Pavilion, a first-rate sect in the northern frontier. Preposterous, preposterous. Sect Master Miao Chun paced back and forth in the meeting hall. The expression on his face was so gloomy that it was almost dripping water. After the mystic realm opened, various powers had sent people into the mystic realm. Even the famous Black Snake couldn't resist the temptation of the mystic realm. As one of the first-rate sects who had been secretly controlling the mystic realm for many years, the Flying Sun Pavilion had even sent a candidate for the next sect master, hoping to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Lin Yuan. The other sects were the same. After all, the mystic realm was a place that couldn't be connected to the outside world and was extremely dangerous to those who didn't know the situation in the mystic realm. Even if a similar place appeared, there might not be enough water-type spirit items to attract the Black Snake. This was the best opportunity to get rid of the Black Snake. Once the Black Snake died, they would throw the blame to the mystic realm's demonic beasts, and the northern frontiers Wang residents could only swallow their anger. Without the Black Snake's protection, the northern frontiers Wang residents was nothing in the eyes of the other sects. But what Miao Chun didn't expect was that before he received any news, Lei Fan's side had already dared to send out troops to wipe out the various sects. This action seemed to be shedding all pretense of cordiality, but at the same time, it was also sending out a signal. In fact, there wasn't anything good in the mystic realm. The real spirit items were all in the palace in the middle of the mystic realm. Those who didn't have the blood of the dragon race wouldn't be able to enter the palace. Therefore, other than those rogue cultivators, rather than saying that the other sects had entered the mystic realm to search for treasures, it was more accurate to say that each of them had their own ulterior motives. They all wanted to reap some benefits from the battle between Lin Yuan and the other sects. But with Lei Fan's actions, it was needless to say who would emerge victorious in the mystic realm. With regards to the actions of the northern frontiers Wang residents, the Flying Sun Pavilion wasn't worried at all. Although the northern frontiers guard army was fierce, they were only targeting the third-rate and second-rate sects. Even the higher-level sects in the second-rate sects weren't something that the northern frontiers Wang residents could touch, let alone a first-rate sect like the Flying Sun Pavilion. The only thing that made Miao Chun's heart ache was that the Lei Xiu who was sent into the mystic realm was already the most outstanding disciple that the Flying Sun Pavilion had recruited in the past 30 years. Furthermore, he had grown up in the Flying Sun Pavilion. His parents were just commoners, and he didn't have any powerful backing behind him. It could be said that he was the best candidate to inherit the Flying Sun Pavilion. And yet, he had died in the mystic realm just like that. Black Snake, you and I cannot live under the same sky. Miao Chun fiercely pushed out his palm, and the strong wind instantly turned the furniture and antiques into dust. Only then did he walk out of his courtyard with his hands behind his back with a ferocious look on his face. Facing the group of consecrators and elders who were already waiting outside, he said, "Although there are many sects in the northern frontier who don't usually get along well with each other, we have always been united when fighting against external enemies. This time, when the smaller sects are in trouble, it will not look good for us, the bigger sects. All of you will lead your men to assist those smaller sects and bring them under the jurisdiction of the Flying Sun Pavilion for protection. What if the people from the northern frontiers Wang residents stop us?" One of the consecrators cupped his hands and asked. Chapter 357. Kill. I'd like to see if this Black Snake has the guts to come and settle the score with me. Miao Chun narrowed his eyes without any hesitation. He didn't care about the Northern Frontier Prince's mansion at all. In Miao Chun's opinion, as long as he left the Black Snake, the prince's mansion at the Northern Frontier Prince's mansion would be a paper tiger that couldn't even withstand a single blow. They wouldn't even be as powerful as a second-rate sect. Although they weren't on the brink of destruction, they weren't much of a threat. There's no need for the Demon Emperor to personally settle the score with you. A calm voice suddenly rang out from the crowd outside the Bian mansion. Miao Chun instinctively frowned and looked in the direction of the voice. Immediately, he saw a bearded old man in a tattered white robe leaning on a sword. He held a vermilion gourd in his hand and poured wine into his mouth from time to time. Peak of the Heaven Star Border realm. Miao Chun narrowed his eyes slightly and looked past the old man's appearance to see the most dangerous side of him. He didn't know how this person managed to sneak into the group of consecrators and elders of the Flying Sun Pavilion, but in terms of cultivation, he wasn't any weaker than him. In addition, he was surrounded by a group of Heaven Star Border realm experts, yet he was still able to maintain his composure. He was probably an existence that had walked very far on the path of the Heaven Star Border realm. Although he wasn't able to knock open the gate of heaven and enter the Kongming realm, he was probably much stronger than ordinary Heaven Star Border realm cultivators. Miao Chun guessed that the other party was at least an expert of the same level as him. Naturally, he didn't have the arrogance of someone who controlled a first-rate sect. Even his gloomy face looked much better. Demon Emperor's Association, Wine Sword Mystery. The old man drank the last mouthful of wine in the gourd and narrowed his eyes. He stood up from his original position and walked towards Miao Chun. He even said slowly, "Under the orders of the Demon Emperor Council, I am here to take Miao Chun's head. From today onwards, the Flying Sun Pavilion will no longer exist in the Northern Frontier. Although the king residences in the Northern Frontier couldn't touch the sects and factions, it didn't mean that the Association of the Demon Emperor couldn't do the same. Although the Association of the Demon Emperor was a force of the pugilistic world, no one could deny the growing influence of the Association of the Demon Emperor in the Sky Martial continent. Lei Yifan had spent almost all of the savings that he had accumulated over this period of time to get the person in charge of the Association of the Demon Emperor, Shi Dong, to agree to help him wipe out a first-rate sect in the Northern Frontier. However, a promise was just a promise. The Assembly of the Demon Emperor was naturally not an impulsive and short-sighted existence. Since they were going to wipe out a first-rate sect, they had to be selective. They had to find a sect with more profits to make their move. If it was about the same, they would pick a soft persimmon to pinch. Although they had the same boss, the Northern Frontier Wang residents and the Assembly of the Demon Emperor were two different factions. Things like working together was just wishful thinking. Even Lin Yuan had to pay a price for using the Assembly of the Demon Emperor. What more an outsider like Lei Yifan? Hence, after much deliberation, the Assembly of the Demon Emperor finally set their sights on the Flying Sun Pavilion. After all, although the Flying Sun Pavilion was a first-rate sect in the Northern Frontier, their foundation was still lacking compared to the other first-rate sects. Furthermore, it was rumored that the Flying Sun Pavilion had a rare lightning-attributed martial art. The Assembly of the Demon Emperor had no reason to let go of this soft persimmon that could be a fat sheep. Hearing that, Miao Chun broke out in cold sweat and said with a gloomy face, "You sure have big words. Although my cultivation isn't ranked high in the Northern Frontier, I'm not someone that can be trifled with." Yi Chou. Tai Shi. Two voices rang out consecutively. A sharp sword qi exploded from the wine sword Xian's body. A snow-white longsword and a dark purple longsword flew over from afar like meteors. One on the left and one on the right. In an instant, they pierced into Miao Chun's left and right shoulders. Even for someone as strong as Miao Chun, he was sent flying by the two swords and crashed heavily into his own courtyard. Miao Chun was caught off guard and lost both of his arms in the blink of an eye. Although it wasn't incurable, he definitely wouldn't be able to use both of his arms in this battle. However, this didn't make Miao Chun lose his fighting spirit. As the person in charge of a first-rate sect, if he were to cower in the matter of the sect's survival just because he was injured, how would he be able to walk in the pugilistic world in the future? Pu Dao. Sang Luo. The wine sword Xian opened his mouth again. A red longsword and a green longsword pierced through the air. Just as Miao Chun leaped out from the ruins of his courtyard, they once again pierced into Miao Chun's legs accurately. In a face-to-face encounter, his limbs were crippled. A group of consecrators and elders of the Feiyang Pavilion looked at each other with horror in their eyes. They began to think about the origin of the wine sword Xian. He was obviously in the same realm as the pavilion master. Why didn't the pavilion master even have the ability to resist in front of him? The wine sword Xian saw that the atmosphere suddenly stagnated. He smiled freely and said indifferently, "Let me say it first. I have a total of 12 flying swords. You can leave or stay as you wish." As soon as the voice fell, the little thoughts in everyone's heart instantly collapsed. He fought with the powerhouse of the same level in a face-to-face encounter. Wasn't it over with one sword to kill the existence of the Heaven Dipper realm from the early stage to the high stage? So everyone didn't dare to be noisy. They all stood aside obediently, waiting for the winner between the wine sword Xian and Miao Chun. 1,000 days drunk. Seeing that everyone no longer moved, the wine sword Xian's gaze fell on Miao Chun, whose limbs were crippled, and opened his mouth again. This time, the sword didn't come from afar. The sword that the wine sword Xian was leaning on trembled slightly, trying to escape from the shackles of the scabbard. It turned into a cold light and instantly pierced through Miao Chun's chest. Miao Chun's eyes were wide open. There was still a look of unwillingness in his eyes, but he slowly fell back. The aura on his body also dissipated the moment the sword pierced through his chest. An existence at the peak of the Heaven Dipper realm didn't even have the chance to make a move against the wine sword Xian. Although the wine sword Xian made 5 sword attacks, strictly speaking, he only made 3 attacks from the beginning to the end. The people from the Demon Emperor Association will come over to take over the Feiyang Pavilion's assets. The Demon Emperor Association has a good grasp of the Feiyang Pavilion's assets. You should consider the consequences of lying and concealing the truth. The wine sword Xian pulled out the 5 long swords from Miao Chun's body one by one. Then, he tidied up his white robe and walked towards the Feiyang Pavilion's mountain gate. He muttered, "That's all you have. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come personally. You delayed my drinking. How could the Sword King who single-handedly killed the rebel army be an existence that a mere leader of a sect in the northern frontier could challenge?" The group of consecrators and elders of the Feiyang Pavilion also had a bitter expression. The little scheme in their hearts was also gone. While the Demon Emperor Association was growing stronger, the threshold to join was also terrifyingly low. Any cultivator who claimed to be a member of the Demon Emperor Association would be accepted. Of course, the Demon Emperor Association also had a set of identity screening procedures. It was just that outsiders didn't know about it, including those who were members. Chapter 358. Therefore, although everyone had their own identities on the surface, at least half of the consecrators and elders present were members of the Association of the Demon Emperor. After all, the Association of the Demon Emperor was backed by Lin Yuan, the Demon Emperor. No matter if it was the Northern Frontier King's residence, the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, or even the black market, they had certain privileges. Naturally, they wouldn't turn a blind eye to these privileges. And to Lin Yuan, who controlled the Association of the Demon Emperor, the benefits in the eyes of others were just a little sweetness in his hands. In the Association of the Demon Emperor, as long as one could bring out a certain amount of evidence, they could use their information to exchange for a considerable amount of reward. Of course, if the same information was sold by someone else first, then you naturally wouldn't be able to get the reward, unless you could continue to supplement the information or expose that the information was a complete lie. Similarly, some merchants and cultivators were also used to buying information from the Association of the Demon Emperor. The Association of the Demon Emperor, which was previously encircled by the Shunwu dynasty, had become an indispensable force in the northern frontier. Most people in the northern frontier didn't even want to provoke the Association of the Demon Emperor. Subsequently, a large number of people from the Association of the Demon Emperor went straight to the Flying Sun Pavilion and quickly handed over the current assets of the Flying Sun Pavilion. Even the library where Miao Chun strictly set the reading rules when he was alive was completely emptied. Even the rumored thunder technique, whose authenticity was unknown, fell into Shedong's hands and was prepared to hand it over to the Demon Emperor. However, before this thunder technique fell into Shedong's hands, it was unknown how many copies had been copied. No matter what kind of creature it was, they would always have their own selfish motives. Lin Yuan never minded that his subordinates had their own selfish motives. If a person followed you without any desires, it would be fine if they were just friends. But if they were superior and subordinate, then you would have to be afraid. Soon, the news of the Flying Sun Pavilion's destruction spread throughout the northern frontier. Like Miao Chun, most of the first-rate sects who had issued the order to rescue the smaller sects could no longer sit still. After all, no one had expected Lin Yuan's subordinates to be able to burst forth with such terrifying power in an instant. Previously, when both sides were on good terms, they all felt that Lin Yuan and his subordinates were just nouveau riche. They seemed to be powerful, but they were completely supported by the Hungduan mountain range's monstrous beasts. If they really fought, they could easily crush the association of the Demon Emperor and the northern frontier's Wang residents. Within 4 hours, 1/3 of the sects in the northern frontier had been wiped out. Even the Flying Sun Pavilion, a first-rate sect, had been annihilated by the association of demon monarchs. This made them tremble with fear. After all, the association of demon monarchs had the ability to annihilate first-rate sects. If the association of demon monarchs could annihilate the Flying Sun Pavilion, how could they not be annihilated? At the other side. At this moment, Lei Fan, who had returned to Shunning City, was looking at the reports of victory that were sent to him. He couldn't stop smiling. Now that the northern frontier was in a state of panic, the aristocratic families that weren't implicated were all watching the show peacefully. After all, in their opinion, they were ultimately different from the sects. The sects could indeed protect one side, but not only could the aristocratic families protect one side, they were also the strong and powerful economic pillars of the entire northern frontier. If they were to collapse, no matter how many spiritual items there were in the northern frontier, they wouldn't be able to sell as well as before. In this day and age, not everyone was qualified to cross the battlefield and come to the northern frontier to collect goods. The Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce was supplying goods to the outside world, and they would need the men of the aristocratic families. You would never be able to wake up a person who was pretending to be asleep. Just like how the aristocratic families were still indulging in their own fabricated dreams and didn't want to wake up. What the aristocratic families could do, the Northern Frontier Guard Corps couldn't do. Without the threat of the Shunwu dynasty and the Hungduan Mountains, other than the sects, there weren't many forces that needed to mobilize the Northern Frontier Guard Corps. If it wasn't for the fact that 600,000 men wasn't a lot to begin with, and even if Lin Yuan didn't contact the Northern Frontier Prince's residence to sell spiritual items, Lei Fan would have long taken the lead to request for a reduction in the army. Now, the Northern Frontier sects only had one feeling towards the Northern Frontier Prince's residence and the association of the Demon Emperor, fear. At this stage, Lei Fan's objective had been completely achieved. As long as the sects were afraid, they would definitely form an alliance. Although the sects wouldn't easily make a move against the Northern Frontier Prince's residence, even if the Northern Frontier Prince's residence was loyal to the Black Snake, they were still nominally under the Shunwu dynasty. Once they took the initiative to stir up trouble, it wouldn't be any different from a rebellion. The reason why the Azure Peng King was able to rebel was firstly because his surname was Lei. Secondly, it was because Lei Qiuming had a high reputation in the military. Therefore, he was able to swiftly mobilize hundreds of thousands of troops for his own use. However, the sects in the northern frontier didn't have this ability. Even if they added up to hundreds of thousands of men, in terms of combat strength, the underworld and the regular army were two different things. Didn't you see how those small sects didn't have any resistance in front of the Northern Frontier Guard Corps? Lord of the Northern Frontier, why are you smiling so happily? Did something good happen? Hu Yang, who was dressed in armor, strode into the office shared by the 7 city lords. He took a sip of tea and his eyes were filled with smiles. Hu Yang, who was born in an aristocratic family, didn't have a good impression of the sects. Moreover, his current boss, Lin Yuan, had an irreconcilable relationship with the sects. Usually, the Hu family had been suppressed by the sects. Now that there was an opportunity to take revenge, Hu Yang naturally wouldn't miss it. Of course it's something good. Lei Yifan put down the reports in his hands and spread his hands out with a smile. The various sects in the northern frontier have already started to prepare for the alliance. Don't you think that's a good thing? Hu Yang was slightly stunned and a tinge of doubt flashed across his eyes. But very quickly, a faint smile flashed across Hu Yang's face. You mean, that's right. The various sects have people from the Demon Emperor Association. Moreover, the alliance has just been established and no one will be willing to submit to anyone. Just creating a little bit of friction will be enough to blow things up. We can make use of this opportunity to implement the new policies that we had previously. The smile on Lei Yifan's face didn't change, but his eyes were flashing with a cold glint as he said in a cold voice, once the new policies are signed, even those super first-rate forces with Void Realm cultivators can forget about being an exception. Otherwise, there won't be any place for them in the 7 dynasties, and if they don't let us sign the new policies, then the super first-rate sects in the northern frontier will no longer have a need to exist. Without these cannon fodders, they will have no choice but to move out of the northern frontier sooner or later. At that time, our goal will still be achieved. Hu Yang's voice was similarly cold as he continued his sentence. Following that, he sighed with emotion. Lord Dragon King is still the best. To be able to play these sects and forces in the palm of his hand. No matter what they choose, it won't affect our plan. Chapter 359. The movement techniques of the illusionary god sect are only SOSO. The last Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator who tried to escape was killed by the halberd 100 miles away. Only then did Yang Xingqi lick his lips, as if he had not had enough, as a hint of regret flashed across his eyes. He had been hiding in the northern frontier for many years. Back then, the valiant general who charged into the battlefield had restrained his killing intent due to an unspoken rule in the Qianwu continent. He obediently squatted in Shunning City, bearing the title of Protector. Other than the battle with the Fire Kirin, the last time he fought was more than 10 years ago, and it was to take care of a group of ignorant heretic cultivators from the Shuangjian dynasty. The various forces abided by the rule that desolate demons and Kongming realm cultivators were not allowed to casually attack low-level cultivators. This was the same for the monsters that they treated as supplements. However, the heretic cultivators who were also humans were not included in this rule. These people spent all their time thinking about overthrowing the rule of humans, summoning an indescribable existence from the endless void to rule this world. Towards these brainless lunatics, no one cared about the rules. The corners of Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang's mouths twitched as a hint of fear flashed across their eyes. Originally, it was a fight to the death between them and Lin Yuan, and the outcome of the battle was as expected. When everyone stopped underestimating Lin Yuan and fought with him, Lin Yuan's method of instantly killing a Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator was not used. Other than those airborne realm cultivators who were just there to make up the numbers, the greatest result of the battle was the lightning cultivator that Lin Yuan killed after grasping the opponent's attack rhythm. However, when Yang Xingqi entered the battlefield, everyone knew what true strength was. Even if the remaining Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators used all their methods, they could only delay him for a little while. When Senior Shu and Li Chang were both killed by Yang Xingqi, the Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator who roared out the sound wave immediately used his sect's famous movement technique to escape. The moment he moved, he had already appeared dozens of miles away. With such speed, they would not be able to catch up even if they risked their lives. However, in front of Yang Xingqi, this protector only glanced at him before casually throwing out the halberd in his hand, killing the illusionary god sect cultivator easily. No wonder the Shunwu dynasty only sent one Heaven Star Border Realm cultivator to guard this place. As long as the desolate demons in the Hengduan mountain range did not come out, the northern frontier would be able to maintain a stable situation where the Hengduan mountain range. Black Snake, you have chosen a good path. However, It is a pity that you have affected the interests of too many people. If you are determined to take this path, you will definitely die in less than 3 years. Yang Xingqi did not even bother to pick up his halberd as his eyes revealed a trace of fatigue. It was not because of how tiring it was to suppress a group of Heaven Star Border Realm cultivators, but because it was simply boring. Senior, what can you teach me? Lin Yuan coiled up his snake body as a ray of light flashed across his heterochromatic eyes. What he wanted to do had indeed affected the interests of too many people. The so-called foundation of the aristocratic families and sects would be smashed and broken bit by bit in the face of Lin Yuan's reforms, until these existences no longer had the power to challenge Lin Yuan. They would either live within the rules that Lin Yuan had set for them, or be wiped out by Lin Yuan. Those aristocratic families and sects would obviously not sit and wait for that day to come. Even if what Lin Yuan said was true, that what he had set off was the tide of the era, and that anyone who tried to resist would be directly crushed, it was obvious that they would die regardless of whether they fought or not. These people would obviously not let Lin Yuan have an easy time. At worst, both sides would just perish together. Your new policies are not bad. The benefits are in the present, and the merits are in the future. However, the world will not tolerate this, so you cannot do these things. The reason is that your body is not strong enough to make everyone fear you. Yang Xingqi's eyes slightly narrowed as he pondered for a moment, then slowly said, therefore, you have 2 options now. One is to join forces with Lei Qiusheng and quickly eliminate the internal and external problems of the Shunwu dynasty. Then, you can hand over your new policies to Lei Qiusheng. This old man has been dissatisfied with the sects and aristocratic families for a long time. However, even if the aristocratic families were destroyed, there would always be a branch that would appear out of nowhere and continue to carry the banner of the aristocratic families. No matter how good Lei Qiusheng is at killing, he would not be able to wipe out everyone in the Shunwu dynasty, right? Yang Xingqi's suggestion made Lin Yuan's eyes light up. Handing over the new policies to Lei Qiusheng was indeed much more suitable than doing it himself. This overbearing king also did not like other voices in his country. The number of sects and aristocratic families that Lei Qiusheng found excuses to suppress and destroy was more than the total number of sects and aristocratic families in the northern frontier combined. However, there was no suitable way to wipe them out completely. Would your meritorious subordinates be rewarded? After the rewards, these fellows would become the new aristocratic families. Lin Yuan's method was not purely to destroy them, but to directly cut off their foundation. So what if there were aristocratic families everywhere? Once they jumped out of Lin Yuan's rules, Lei Qiusheng could easily label them as rebels and then clean up these disobedient people. Even the imperial censors would have to obediently shut their mouths. Who would be willing to be associated with a group of rebels? May I ask, Senior, since there is one, then there will be 2 and 3, right? In the end, Yang Xingqi was an old senior who had more experience than the younger generation. Yang Xingqi's casual suggestion was enough to benefit Lin Yuan greatly. After all, he had never thought of joining hands with the indigenous powers of Sky Marshal Continent to reform. In his eyes, even a king like Lei Qiusheng was an existence that was similar to a burden. What was the difference between the imperial family and the aristocratic families? They were just slightly bigger aristocratic families. That's right. Although this plan is safe and feasible, but you have to know that when you see Lei Qiusheng as your greatest enemy, Lei Qiusheng also has no reason to let you go. If you were just a noble in the northern frontier, it would be fine. But you were born in the Hengduan mountain range, and have the blood of the dragon clan flowing in your body. As such, the 2 great demonic beast groups are inextricably linked to you. Compared to the aristocratic families and sects, you, the Black Snake, are more of a threat to Lei Qiusheng. However, since the new policies were created by you, if anything were to happen, Lei Qiusheng would naturally find someone to take the blame and implicate you. In the short term, he will not be able to touch you, nor will he be able to touch you. If you grow fast enough, before Lei Qiusheng's blade cuts your neck, you will already have the qualifications to wrestle with him. At that time, he can only grit his teeth and swallow it in his stomach. Yang Xingqi's eyes shone brightly. As an existence that was on par with Lei Qiusheng in the past, Even if he had been hidden for decades, Yang Xingqi's foresight was sufficiently shrewd. Chapter 360. However, this old man's second path still depends on you. After all, the Shunwu dynasty is currently in a mess. Even if you wisely chose to retreat in order to advance, helping Lei Qiusheng stabilize the situation while also stabilizing your position as the god of the northern frontier, no one can deny that with your example, the entire Shunwu dynasty is now impetuous. Otherwise, the Qing Peng king wouldn't have directly started an uprising. If you don't want to take the safe path, you might as well directly fall out with Lei Qiusheng and quickly eliminate the Shunwu dynasty that has been lurking in the northern frontier for a long time. You will also defeat the sects and suppress the aristocratic families. In a short period of time, you will become the enemy of the entire world. However, the advantage of doing this is that as long as you don't infringe on the interests of those top-notch figures, and with this old man's support, there will be many people who want to beat you up, but those who really make a move will basically be within your capabilities. If you take this path, the only two requirements are that you are fierce enough and ruthless enough. Furthermore, you have to keep up with your growth speed. At least before this mess is settled by Lei Qiusheng, you have to grow to the point where Lei Qiusheng will splash blood on you. You, who have control of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce and the Fey Trade, already have the initial requirements. Therefore, what you need to do now is, at this point, Yang Xingqi paused and said with a gloomy expression, increase your own strength, and at the same time, have more control over the northern frontier. Otherwise, Zhongxiu won't kill you, Black Snake, and casually help a nobody to take over the foundation that you have painstakingly built. Lin Yuan didn't continue the conversation and maintained his silence while revealing a thoughtful expression. Yang Xingqi was a fierce general who had been on the battlefield for many years. His strategic foresight was extremely accurate. The two suggestions he gave were both feasible. The first one was for Lei Qiusheng to fight with his life on the line, and the winner would definitely be Lei Qiusheng. However, after Lei Qiusheng won against the aristocratic families and sects, the first one to be dealt with would be Lin Yuan. The second option was to let Lin Yuan risk his life. As long as he could protect the base in his hands, Lei Qiusheng wouldn't be able to touch him for the time being. And Lei Qiusheng, who coveted the stability and unification of the northern frontier, would also take this path. However, this would allow Lin Yuan to enter the stage of power struggle in advance, and at the same time, weaken the enemies that Lin Yuan would have to face. After all, Lei Qiusheng wanted to walk the same path as Lin Yuan. Naturally, he wouldn't sit and watch Lin Yuan fall. Wouldn't that give those aristocratic families and sects the opportunity to spread rumors that Lin Yuan's path was evil? At that time, not to mention dealing with Lin Yuan in private, even some of the new national policies would lean towards supporting Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment, then suddenly laughed and said loudly, "Senior has been hiding for dozens of years, and you still have such shrewd eyes. It seems that Lei Qiusheng's ability isn't that great after all." Lin Yuan's words were full of flattery, but more of a warning. After all, Yang Xingqi could help Lin Yuan come up with a plan, and had the confidence to support Lin Yuan. This meant that Yang Xingqi wasn't as quiet as he seemed on the surface. He was just waiting for an opportunity to come back and compete with Lei Qiusheng. And now that Lin Yuan had taken over the northern frontier, obviously, Yang Xingqi saw the opportunity to defeat that famous warrior of the pass. Yang Xingqi stroked his beard and didn't say anything. But in his heart, he silently complained for a while. If Lei Qiusheng really didn't have the ability, then why did Wine Sword Mystery, who was at the peak of Heaven Dipper realm, hide in the northern frontier? Why couldn't the remaining members of the Jiao clan, who were supported by all the local officials of the dynasty, survive after leaving the Hengduan Mountains? Yang Xingqi was a Void Nether Realm warrior. Why would he stay in the northern frontier for dozens of years? Lei Qiusheng not only had the ability to recognize people, he also knew how to use them, and dared to use them. Even if he was afraid of Yang Xingqi, he still only exiled him to the bitter cold northern frontier to guard his door. Because although Lei Qiusheng had a headache over them, but if both sides really went all out, Lei Qiusheng could still completely control them. Even Yang Xingqi, who couldn't win against Lei Choshing in the past, had reached the Void Nether Realm for such a long time. How could Lei Choshing's strength stop at the Heaven Dipper realm? It was nothing more than Lei Choshing deceiving others for the sake of carrying out some of his plans. All these years, because of Lei Choshing's constant suppression of the aristocratic families and sects, it wasn't as if there were no Void Tier cultivators who had infiltrated the imperial capital to assassinate Lei Choshing, but in the end, didn't they all end up without any news? However, this black snake that jumped out of Lei Choshing's calculations did indeed let Yang Xingqi see a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope to defeat that man. The man and the snake looked at each other for a while, then Yang Xingqi finally let go of his hand that was stroking his beard, and said with a smile, "Looks like Lord Dragon King has already made his decision. Then I should go and make some preparations. Goodbye. I won't see you out." Lin Yuan nodded slightly, then turned his head to look at Chen Guanshan and Shui Yang beside him, and whispered a few words to them. The two of them then followed Yang Xingqi's path towards the exit of the secret territory. Lin Yuan, who was standing at the same spot, was silent for a while, then he laughed coldly. Lei Fan, being too ambitious is not a good thing. I hope you don't go overboard and cause everyone to be unable to clean up the mess." As his voice fell, Lin Yuan's body shook, and he abruptly flew towards the palace in the center of the secret territory. After Lin Yuan's figure had completely disappeared, a huge figure slowly appeared. A ferocious scarlet snake tail wrapped around the tortoiseshell, and it said with a vicious tone, "Zhenhai, you have guarded Lord's tomb for so many years, and you just watched as that black Jiao disturbed Lord's peace?" The tortoiseshell called Zhenhai was silent for a while, then he slowly replied, "Ying Tian, you and I are one. Even that old monk could see through my thoughts. Must you ask the obvious? Those fellows could come back at any time, and with one more person who knows the inside story, our strength will increase. Compared to this world, do you think Lord's peace is more important?" The golden relic also flew out from the tortoiseshell, chanting Buddha's name, Amitabha, to be able to maintain his state of mind under the influence of that evil being, and to be able to understand our language. This Black Jiao is either the son of some great person, or a powerful being who has reincarnated. With him around, this world will indeed be more stable. After all, he is an existence who has survived the sea of bitterness as a spirit. Zhenhai leisurely continued the relic's words, his voice carrying a hint of self-mockery. "We have already fallen to such a state, and even if we want to protect this world, we can't do it anymore. Why don't we just hand it over to that young man, and let him fight for us? Being suppressed in this Sumeru world like this, there is nothing bad about it, it's just that the old monk is chanting scriptures every day. It's too noisy." Yes. Ying Tian nodded his head, agreeing with Zhenhai's last sentence. Chapter 361. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Master Kuwen sat in the meditation hall and cultivated. 3 days ago, all the major sects gave up their bases that they had been operating for many years without hesitation. After dismissing a large number of disciples, they brought their elites to the Freedom Yard for the purpose of contending against the northern frontier Wangfu. If it was only second-rate or third-rate sects that were swept away, they could still sit back and watch the northern region Lord Mansion perform. However, as a first-rate sect, the Flying Sun Pavilion was actually uprooted on the same day. Even the sect's assets fell into the hands of the Association of Demon Emperors. This was something that they couldn't help but be fearful of. Miao Chun was an existence at the peak of the Heaven Dipper realm. Even if he wasn't in the first sequence, he was still a famous expert. However, according to insiders, Miao Chun couldn't even last 3 moves against the Association of the Demon Emperor's member who called himself Zhu Jianxian. Yes, 3 moves. 1 move and 2 swords were also 3 moves. Furthermore, everyone could tell that the reason why Miao Chun was able to withstand 3 moves was because the Wine Sword Profound was deliberately intimidating the people of the Flying Sun Pavilion. Otherwise, the moment Miao Chun stepped out of the courtyard, the Wine Sword Profound would have easily pierced Miao Chun's heart. Therefore, the various sects could not sit still and all of them came to the Freedom Courtyard to seek refuge. Who asked the Freedom Yard to have 3 Void Realm cultivators? Kuwen, Kushuan, and Kuhai, the three masters were famous in the northern frontier for many years. Even Yang Xingqi and the three great beast kings didn't dare to provoke the Freedom Yard. A mere black snake and the northern frontier Wang Fu dared to cause trouble in the Freedom Yard? Abbot, it's not good. It's not good. A young monk wearing a yellow robe rushed into Master Kuwen's meditation hall. He was crying with a young and tender face. Even his voice sounded like he was about to cry. Master Kuwen, who was offended by the young monk, frowned slightly. However, he couldn't bear to reprimand him when he saw the young monk's dejected face. He slowly stood up from the praying mat, shook off the non-existent dust on his red robe, and said in a deep voice, "My Buddha oversees the heavens. Even if the extraterritorial sky demon descends, the Freedom Yard can still become a pure land." "What happened to make you so flustered?" "Someone died." The young novice monk was startled by Master Kuwen's frown, but he quickly explained the reason. With all the major sects and forces gathered near the repose courtyard, the northern frontier duke's mansion indeed did not have the guts to touch them. But under the deterrence of Lin Yuan, Lei Fan, who had been an obedient child for so long, had just taken control of the situation and viciously bit down on those major sects and forces. Even though he knew what it meant to show mercy wherever possible, and clearly knew that he had already achieved great results in the battle, he was still unwilling to let the matter drop just like that. He had been thinking of ways to incite conflict between both sides all this while. Due to the activities of some members of the Association of the Demon Emperor, a young sect master of a first-rate sect had killed a rich young master who had argued with him in order to win a smile from a beauty. If it was during normal times, this matter would have been reduced to a small matter. At most, the first-rate sect would have held a banquet to apologize and give enough face to the young master's family. In the end, they would have promised some benefits and this matter would have been over. But what was the situation now? Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the northern frontier duke's mansion had taken action for real this time. Cultivators of the Void Realm were not allowed to interfere, and without the existence of Void Realm cultivators, they would not be able to win against the northern frontier duke's mansion. Therefore, the sects and forces could be said to be on the verge of collapse. Although some of the more astute aristocratic families had sensed that something was wrong, but they still believed that this was a good opportunity. The greed in their nature did not allow them to choose the method of settling this privately as they had done in the past. Instead, they chose to report this matter to the authorities, and directly shoved this matter into the hands of the northern frontier duke's mansion. Of course, with the support of the Freedom Courtyard, they had to stand up for the sects under their protection for the sake of their reputation. If the power of the aristocratic families reporting to the authorities was average, the Freedom Courtyard could directly suppress the northern frontier duke's mansion and give them a chance to mediate privately. Unfortunately, the aristocratic families of the northern frontier had multiplied for so many years, especially the Qiao family, an ancient family with a history of nearly 1,000 years. Not to mention how many aristocratic families in the northern frontier relied on the Qiao family for survival. If there was a chance, these aristocratic families would all want to have a marriage alliance with the Qiao family. Putting aside the complicated relationship, that unfortunate rich young master would have to call the current head of the Qiao family grand-uncle. Although the relationship between the Qiao family and the northern frontier duke's mansion had not been made public, they were already in cahoots in private. Naturally, they would not let go of this opportunity to suppress the sects. Therefore, the one who took the lead to report that the young sect master had killed someone was actually an old master of the Qiao family's direct line of descent. With the request of a Heavenly Dipper realm expert, the northern frontier duke's mansion naturally had no reason to be biased towards the sects. Moreover, the relationship between the two parties had already reached a point where it would only end with one party dead. As a matter of fact, the troops of the northern frontier duke's mansion had directly stopped at the entrance of the Freedom Courtyard, demanding for them to hand over the culprit to be punished. One must know that when aristocratic families wanted to borrow the power of the imperial court, they would secretly give some money, spirit items, and other resources to their own stewards, allowing them to communicate with the authorities. Even the side branches would rarely make an appearance. This time, even the old master of the Qiao family's direct line of descent had made an appearance. How could this matter be suppressed? Therefore, the Freedom Courtyard had no choice but to throw this trouble to the 3 seniors who were meditating in seclusion. After listening to the young novice monk's words, Master Kuan gnashed his teeth in hatred. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was the Shifter Emperor's Association deliberately digging a hole for the young sect master to jump into. Otherwise, this matter would not have been blown out of proportion. This young sect master was really King idiot. What time was it now? Not only did he run out to indulge in wine and women, but he even King killed a young master of an aristocratic family for a woman. However, this matter could not be blamed on the young sect master. After all, the Duke's mansion of the northern frontier was serious, and the sects were already in a state of panic. If the news spread that they were beaten by the Duke's mansion of the northern frontier and had to seek the protection of the Freedom Courtyard, most of their disciples would leave in an instant. Therefore, to their disciples, they only said that the Freedom Courtyard was holding a grand event and invited all the sects to attend. Therefore, this young sect master was confused and thought that he was the kind of young master who could call the wind and summon the rain in the northern frontier. Not to mention killing someone. If the aristocratic family was not big, it was not impossible for him to directly exterminate the entire family. Master, this matter, how should we deal with it? The young novice monk, who was pushed over to ask for Master Kuan's opinion, had a bitter expression on his face. Even with his small brain, he could tell that if it weren't for the fact that the matter was tricky, how could those masters in the Freedom Yard, whose mouths were full of oil, find trouble for themselves by asking for the help of 3 senior masters who had titles but didn't care about worldly affairs and focused on cultivation? Chapter 362. Master Kuan glanced at the unlucky kid, shook his head, and said nothing. How should he deal with this? He just couldn't understand why those brats had to get themselves into such trouble. What kind of existence was that black snake? That was an existence who dared to kill the fire Chelene of the desolate demon realm when he was only at the peak of wisdom state. Furthermore, he planned meticulously, and even plotted against him and Yang Xingqi step by step. In the end, he even killed the old demon beast, the fire Chelene, with his own hands. Thinking about it carefully after returning to the Freedom Courtyard, Master Kuan was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. How much did your martial uncles take from them to agree to protect them? Master Kuan was silent for a moment, and decided to ask about the price first. If it really didn't work, the Freedom Yard would pay double the price to send them away. 1/3 of each family's property. The young novice shrunk his neck guiltily and whispered. When Master Kuan asked, he already knew what this senior was planning. After all, in the Jianghu, who wouldn't offend a few existences that they couldn't afford to offend? Didn't the so-called divine sects and Jianghu legends of the northern frontier come to make a living at this time? They would step out to protect those who had nowhere else to go, and then take a huge sum of money from those who were protected. Most of the time, they didn't even need to do anything. Which cultivator in Jianghu wouldn't give each other face? However, no matter how famous they were, there would always be a time when they couldn't protect themselves. For example, at this moment, Master Kuan was determined not to get into trouble, so he wanted to follow the rules of the Jianghu and give them 3 times the promised benefits, and then send them away safely. This was the most benevolent thing he could do. Hiss. After hearing the young novice monk's offer, Master Kuan gasped in shock. There were many sects of all sizes in the northern frontier. What did it mean for each family to own 1/3 of their property? Even if they sold all the golden statues that the pilgrims in the Freedom Yard spent a lot of money to make, they still wouldn't be able to gather enough money to send these demons away. Therefore, the Freedom Yard had to take care of this matter, and they had to take care of it well. Otherwise, who would respect the Freedom Yard in the future? Master Kuan really wished he could slap all these brainless juniors to death. Now that the young sect master had committed a crime and was hiding in the Freedom Courtyard, the Northern Region Lord's palace had valiantly come to the Freedom Courtyard to demand for him. Putting aside the Northern Region Lord's palace and the association of the Shifter Emperor, there were still many aristocratic families behind this matter. If the Freedom Courtyard couldn't give a satisfactory explanation, they wouldn't let this matter go so easily. Not give. The Northern Region King Palace dared to forcefully tear down the Freedom Courtyard and lock them up. If the Freedom Courtyard resisted, they would be labeled as traitors. At that time, even if they had 3 Void Realm cultivators, they wouldn't be able to do anything. No dynasty would take in a bunch of traitors. At that time, they would have to cross the ocean and hide. They would be even worse than those evil cultivators hiding in the dark. Give. Even if the Repose Courtyard's reputation was ruined, no matter how many powerhouses there were in the Repose Courtyard or how outstanding their techniques were, the cultivation forces would never give them any face in the future. Even those young men who wanted to cultivate had to look at the reputation of the sect before they wanted to be apprenticed. Perhaps after this matter was over, the Repose Courtyard would never be able to receive a single outstanding disciple in the future. Master Kuwen almost burst into tears. It was too difficult. It was really too difficult. Let's go out and take a look. After thinking for a while, Master Kuwen walked out of the temple. Although he didn't have the confidence to protect the young master, but he had participated in the killing of Hua Kirin. He had some ties with Lei Fan and Lin Yuan. Although he had done it for the sake of the Lei family, but now, if he wanted to use this matter to plead for mercy, Lei Fan and Lin Yuan wouldn't take him seriously. The young master couldn't be saved. But if the royal residents of the northern frontier wanted to use this matter to destroy a sect, then he would not agree to it. In the end, just as he walked out of the temple, Master Kuwen felt a darkness in front of him. When he raised his head, he saw a black snake about 10,000 feet long circling in the sky above the Freedom Yard. One of its eyes was blue, and the other was the color of ice. It was coldly looking at the Freedom Yard. Although he didn't know why, Master Kuwen could feel that the black snake was looking at him. Kuwen of the Freedom Yard. Greetings to the Dragon King of the Northern Frontier. The sinister look in Master Kuwen's eyes disappeared in an instant and was replaced by a smile. Lin Yuan nodded calmly. There was no change in his eyes. He said in a low voice, Master Kuwen has been in charge of the northern frontier for many years and has a great reputation. And this is not the first time you have met this king. There is no need to be so polite. More and more cultivators gathered. Looking at Lin Yuan circling in the sky, they were all speechless. What kind of F***king monster was this? In less than a year and a half, it went from a beast without any cultivation to a mountain lord monster capable of flight. Furthermore, the pressure it exuded was so strong that some airborne realm cultivators couldn't help but kneel down as soon as they saw Lin Yuan, as if they were worshipping a high and mighty god. The Dragon King is here, and the Freedom Yard, Master Kuwen, the laws of the northern frontier are strict, and this king has made sure that the new laws of the northern frontier have been distributed to every household. As such, you should know that anyone who kills without reason within the jurisdiction of the northern frontier, regardless of whether they are humans or monsters, will have to pay with their lives in the best-case scenario. Master Kuwen, you should know that this king is now the god of the northern frontier conferred by the dynasty, and he has the responsibility of governing the monsters in the northern frontier. If this most basic rule is broken, there will be no trade in the northern frontier in the future. Wouldn't any person or monster dare to wantonly wage war within the jurisdiction of the northern frontier? Before Master Kuwen's voice fell, Lin Yuan had already interrupted Master Kuwen. I know, but the culprit is just a child. I hope that Lord Dragon King can make things easier for me. What a joke. The murderer is a child, but the one who died in my house is not a child. I may not be young, but the elders in my family are still around, and I can still be considered a child. Can't I just kill a few disciples of the Freedom Yard and then say that I am a child and ask the northern frontier to make things easier for me? This time, the one who interrupted Master Kuwen was not Lin Yuan, but the master of the Qiao clan who went to report to the authorities. He was at level 7 of the Heaven Star realm and ranked 4th in the Qiao clan. He was usually responsible for teaching the disciples of the Qiao clan to cultivate. He had no talent in business or family management, but he was good at fighting and killing, and his voice was also surprisingly loud. Chapter 363. Fat. Fat. As soon as Fourth Master Chiao finished speaking, the generals of the Northern Frontier Guard Army could not help but burst into laughter. For a rough man in his 60s to call him a child in front of so many people, those who had not received special training would find it hard to hold back their laughter. Even though they had deliberately lowered their voices, everyone present was a cultivator with decent cultivation. Their 5 senses were far superior to that of ordinary people, so they naturally heard the sneers. However, Fourth Master Chiao, who was the laughingstock, did not have an uncomfortable expression. On the contrary, Master Kuwen's face had completely darkened. In any case, he was a Void Realm cultivator, yet he had been interrupted twice in a row. Moreover, Fourth Master Chiao had directly declared that he would kill a disciple of the Freedom Courtyard. For such a thing to happen to him, not to mention a monk, even Buddha would be somewhat angry. Make things easier. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic vertical pupils slightly trembled as he softly muttered. Then, Lin Yuan raised his head and said in an icy tone, Master Kuwen's face is naturally useful. In the northern frontier, which cultivator would not give you some face? Unfortunately, the northern frontier does not care about face, only rules. If it was a private matter between you and me, not only would I make things easier, I would also have to respect you as an elder. But this is official business. There is only one choice for official business in the northern frontier, and that is to strictly enforce the new northern frontier law. If this matter was different, Lin Yuan would really have to give face to a Void Realm senior. However, this involved the most basic rule of the northern frontier law, a life for a life. Lin Yuan naturally could not take even half a step back. If the Freedom Courtyard straightforwardly handed over the person to them, Lin Yuan would feel that it was dull, and his spirit would also be dampened. But the Freedom Courtyard wanted to protect the person? Then I'm sorry. This daddy is here to slap your face. If I don't take you, the #1 sect in the Northern Frontier, as an example, who would take the new Northern Frontier law seriously? Then there's no room for discussion. Master Kuwen's gloomy face didn't change, but a sinister look appeared in his eyes again. He could directly kill Lin Yuan, and the 3 Kongming realm cultivators of the Freedom Courtyard would take action. Not to mention Lin Yuan, even the guards of the northern region who planned to come to the door and arrest them would not be able to escape. However, this was the Tianwu continent, not some secret realm or Sumeru world. The Freedom Courtyard did not want to become a rebel, and Master Kuwen did not want to become the prey of those demon beasts in the desolate demon realm of the Hungduan Mountains. Therefore, he could only stare hatefully at Lin Yuan, but he did not have the courage to attack. Naturally, his aura had weakened. There's nothing to talk about. Get him. There was not even a ripple in Lin Yuan's eyes. He had obtained the inheritance of an ancient power from the secret territory and knew some secrets. Therefore, Lin Yuan was now clear about where the existences of the Kongming realm and above were gathered and what they were doing. Compared to those terrible enemies, the so-called sects and the 7 great empires were like clay chickens and pottery dogs in Lin Yuan's eyes. They were not worth mentioning at all. Let them pass. Seeing that Lin Yuan was determined to take them, Master Kuwen glared at Lin Yuan, and could only helplessly let them pass. After saying this, Master Kuwen was too lazy to care about what would happen in the future. Anyway, he was sure that from now on, there would be no place for sects and forces like them to take root in the northern region. Other than the cultivators who were willing to join the Northern Region Academy and become instructors, all of them had either died under the continuous persecution of the Black Snake or left the Northern Region because they could not bear the pressure. If the foundations of the sects could not be preserved, what was the use of face? It was better to go back and think of a way out, and find a good place to settle down. Lin Yuan's unyielding action just now had already shown that he didn't want to cover up this matter this time. Instead, he wanted to strike while the iron was hot and humiliate the Freedom Courtyard first. Then, similar things would continue to happen to the disciples of these sects. Even if the sects strictly guarded them, they couldn't prevent the traitor of the Demon Emperors Association in their own sect, right? Soon, a group of Beijing guards who had received the imperial edict dragged out a young master wearing a moon-white robe. This young master's appearance was not bad, but his eyes were a little dim, and his eye bags were not shallow. He looked like a waxy head who had indulged too much in debauchery and had been robbed of everything by wine, women, and greed. Now that he was being dragged out by the Beijing guards, he was so scared that he cried out for his father to save him. Unfortunately, the expression on his father's face did not change from beginning to end, as if the young master who was being dragged away was not his son at all. This was because he knew very well that if the Freedom Courtyard could not protect someone, what could his first-rate sect, whose strength was far below theirs, do? If he did not speak up now, it would be fine if one of his sons died. If he spoke up, his whole family might be wiped out. However, just because he did not speak up did not mean that others would not speak up. This black snake has no intention of letting our sect disciples live. Today, the young sect master of the Fish and Water sect was taken away. Who knows who else will be taken away tomorrow? If we swallow this humiliation, we will all be treated as examples of the new laws of the northern frontier, and be beheaded in public. Someone in the crowd yelled out. The group of sect disciples suddenly came to their senses, and they all looked at the northern frontier guards with ferocious eyes. Today, they could kill their fellow cultivators and not themselves, but if all of their fellow cultivators died, they would have to die even if they did not. Clang, 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 the sound of countless sharp swords being unsheathed rang out. Even if some of the more astute people wanted to stop them, it was too late. These sect disciples immediately rushed forward with red eyes and fought with the Beijing guards who had been prepared for this. In an instant, there were flashes of swords and sabers everywhere. All kinds of blood and broken limbs flew everywhere. The peaceful place of Buddhism had been turned into a bloody purgatory. Release the signal flare and call for help. Zhong Chalin, who was in charge of arresting the criminals, pulled out his saber expressionlessly. After giving the order, he rushed into the battle line and cut down a few sect disciples. Then, he growled, "You are soldiers, so act like one. Don't fight like a bunch of ruffians. Don't tell others that you are my soldiers." Although Li Zhongxing and Zhong Chalin had brought Shen Linjun's reserve troops, they were still the most elite troops of the Shenwu dynasty. Whether it was their combat strength or training methods, they were second to none. Therefore, with these reserve troops as the backbone to train the entire army, the 600,000 northern frontier guards were no longer the same as before. They were also proficient in the art of battle formations that soldiers must know if they wanted to increase their chances of survival on the battlefield. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,